Chapter 2387. Aren't you scared of me? Zhong turned to Tang Tang and admonished him furiously. Don't be rude. Don't you know who she is? This is the matriarch of Tianshui City's Yin family. She's Madam Director of the Arbitration Council. Matriarch of the Yin family. A contemplative emotion rose in baby Tong Tong's large eyes upon hearing that, as if he finally understood who she was. The warm atmosphere earlier was akin to a bubbled illusion, and it shattered with a pop. That's right. This child was only so concerned and friendly toward her because he didn't know who she was. Iciness gradually seeped back into Yin Yuerong's face, and she turned to the child. That's right. I'm the head of the Yin family. She didn't believe that Agio and that woman, Worryless Nya, wouldn't have mentioned her to this child, especially Worryless Nya. That woman had to have warned this child about the kind of person she was. However, what surprised Yin Yuerong again was that the child didn't reveal any scared expression after learning about her identity. Instead, the child was joyous and excited. Grandma, the little fella cheerfully called as he looked at her. So you're Tong Tong's grandma. When Yin Yuerong heard the little fella calling her grandma, Yin Yuerong's spine stiffened, incomprehension and strangeness enveloping her eyes. You know who I am. Aren't you scared of me? Tang Tang was baffled. Why should I be afraid of Grandma? Yin Yuerong calmly asked. Your mother didn't mention me to you? Tang Tang honestly nodded. Mommy mentioned Grandma. Mockery filled Yin Yuerong's face. Oh, is that so? What did your mommy say about me? Tang Tang thought about it. Mommy said Grandma isn't easy to get along with, Yin Yuerong snorted. As expected. And Yin Yuerong pressed. Tang Tang replied. Mommy said although Grandma isn't easy to get along with, Grandma's actually a nice person, and Grandma just has some issues with her EQ. Yin Yuerong, I'm a nice person, and I have issues with my EQ. No matter what, Yin Yuerong never expected this to be Worryless Nye's evaluation of her. Tang Tang continued. Mommy said that you have a noble status and are so good-looking, so you're going to be a winner in life without a problem, but unfortunately, your EQ is too low, just like my daddy. Thankfully, Tang Tang didn't inherit Grandma and Daddy's EQ. As Yin Yuerong listened to the child's words, her expression was indescribable, and it took her half a day to recover her wits. That's all, your mother said? Yeah. Baby Tang Tang nodded and quickly comforted her. But don't be sad, Grandma. With the EQ of Mommy and I, that's enough for our family. Yin Yuerong had no idea what to say anymore. Plus, the our family part caused some strange emotion to surface in her heart. When a housekeeper heard this, she couldn't help but release a chuckle. Gentleness was all over her face, and she affectionately looked at the child in front of her. Madam, little young master is very interesting. Then she furtively said to Yin Yuerong, Madam, actually we've never tried to understand that Worryless Nya. Perhaps she isn't as terrible as we imagined. After all, eldest young master likes her. So how awful could she be? The housekeeper obtained a much more favorable impression of Worryless Nya simply based on the fact that she hadn't instilled the previous generation's grievances and hatred onto a child. Moreover, the little young master was exceptionally pretty and adorable, so she liked him more the more she saw him. No wonder this child wasn't scared after being abducted and didn't panic after seeing Yin Yuerong. It turned out Worryless Nya never spoke ill of his grandmother in front of him. The child was clear-minded, so he felt no fear. Chapter 2388. Place him next door. Yin Yuerong naturally caught that Annie Chiao was helping that woman. So she aloofly asked, so I should be grateful and on my knees simply because she didn't speak ill of me in front of child? Do you think I care? Andy Chiao quickly lowered her head and respectfully said, Of course you wouldn't. You've never cared about what other people thought, madam. Annie Chiao had a thorough understanding of Yin Yuerong's personality. Changing her opinion of a person was harder than ascending to the heavens. That was the case for Si Huaizhong. That was the case for eldest young master, and that was the case for Worryless Nya without exception. No matter what Si Huaizhong did, Madame was unwilling to change her feelings toward him and unwilling to give up. Madame's severeness and misplaced anger toward eldest young master also never changed. When it came to worryless Nya, she had caused eldest young master to completely escape Madame's control, so it was nearly impossible to make Madame accept her. Annie Chow couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Worryless Nya's evaluation of Madame was fairly accurate. Madame was fine otherwise, but her personality was seriously. Inuerong glanced at the child before standing up as she pinched her brows. I won't return to the ancestral estate today, and will work here. As for this child, make arrangements for him, Annie Chiao. After learning about matters going south in Tinshui City, she rushed back overnight. Then after what happened to Qin Zong, she had a giant mess to deal with and didn't have a moment's rest. After Qin Zong's fall from power, the vice president faction was leaderless and descended into chaos, and an endless stream of people visited her. All right, madam. Where will little young master stay? Annie Chow furtively inquired. Zhong quickly interjected at that moment. How about you leave this child arrangements to me, madam? Perhaps sensing that Inuerong didn't seem to like him calling that child little bastard, Zhong shrewdly changed his term of address. No matter what, this child was Inuerong's grandson, so while she herself could insult him like that, she might not be able to tolerate other people insulting him in that way. Inuerong was about to agree without a thought, but inexplicably changed her mind upon meeting that child's clear eyes. Auntie Chow, clean out the room next to mine. Joy filled Annie Chow's face. Yes, I will do so now. Zhong was startled. Ow, how could that do? What right does this child have? Auntie Chow glanced at Zhong with displeasure. This is the Yin family's little young master. This is Madame's grandson. What problem is there with him being next to Madame? Regarding Annie Chow's comment, Inuerong furrowed her brows, but didn't end up admonishing the woman in the end, perhaps not having the energy to care out of exhaustion. When Zhong saw that Inuerong didn't say anything, he knew that whatever he said would be useless, so he could only reluctantly say, There's no problem. Placing him next to Madame to watch him carefully couldn't be any more appropriate. In the study, Inuerong drank an especially strong cup of coffee and was taking care of her business affairs when Zhong knocked and entered. Madam, speak. Inuerong didn't even look up. Zhong did as Hung instructed last night and mournfully cried, Madam, I snuck into the sea residence to visit young master Hung last night, and eldest young master was truly too vicious. Young master Hung was covered in injuries but was left untreated. Eldest young master even tortured him. Young master Hung is very weak right now. Madam, you must hurry and think of a method to rescue young master Hung. Otherwise, if this continues, young master won't be able to endure it. Inuerong set down the fountain pen in her hand and coldly glanced at Zhong. It appears you didn't understand my orders yesterday. Do you think his fate would be any better if you're here with me? Chapter 2389. Eat dinner together. The icy gaze sent a shiver down Zhong's back. He gulped and said, Madam, I know young master Hung committed a grievous crime this time, but his motives were to better the future of the Yin family. After all, he's the future head of the Yin family. You should know eldest young master's personality. He's been bewitched by that vixen and most likely won't return, so the Yin family's future will have to depend on young master Hung. Inuerong's expression darkened abruptly. Are you threatening me? I wouldn't dare. Why would I, madam? I'm merely thinking on behalf of madam and the Yin family. Scram. Yes, why yes. In the sea residence secret dungeon, Zhong snuck inside again. As soon as Hung saw Zhong, he asked anxiously, How are things? Did mother say when she'll rescue me? Zhong was afraid Hung would be aggravated, so he tried his best to be tactful. Madam is currently having a row with eldest young master, so there's no way she'd relent so quickly. We can only inconvenience young master in suffering for several more days. What? I have to wait several more days? Heng's expression darkened instantly, and he finally sensed something was amiss. Zhong, tell me the truth. Just what did mother say? I want to hear her exact words. Zhong looked troubled. Young Master In Hung, it'd be better if you didn't know. In Hung tightly clutched the metal bars. Of course I have to know. Speak quickly. Ajong had no choice but to speak the truth. Madam said, even if you were the In estate right now, your fate wouldn't be any better. And she also said, you were a piece of trash and weren't worth her expending her energy. When In Hung heard this, he was incredulous. Impossible. How could that be possible? In Yuerong only has me left. She dares to not save me. Yes, I agree, young master. So Madam probably only said that in anger. You mustn't get aggravated. Madam is just in a bad mood because she's utterly exhausted from overworking lately. Ajong said. In Hung tried his best to calm down. How's the situation on the outside right now? Ajong responded. Now that Vice President Qin has fallen from power, people are visiting Madam all the time, and Madam's been frequently coming into contact with those people. I feel like Madam probably wants to replace him and take up the position of Vice President. In Heng's eyes brightened. With Mother's abilities and connections, she would be the strongest contender for the position of Vice President indeed. If In Yuerong became the Vice President, he could borrow In Yuerong's power to make a comeback. In Heng's expression was dark. Now that Mother has forcefully seized that little bastard, she has completely fallen out with Si Yin, so both sides will definitely suffer in the end. At that point, Mother will definitely invite me back. Ajong nodded vehemently. You're right, eldest young master, at Wanmei Villa. In Yuerong had been working from morning to evening and didn't permit the servants to disturb her for lunch. In the end, it was Auntie Chow who gathered her courage to knock on the door and call her out for dinner. In Yuerong walked to the dining table, as usual, but started upon approach. What was different from before was that there was also a fair and adorable child sitting next to the giant table today. The chair was a bit high, so the little fella's legs swung back and forth in the air as he sat there. When he saw her, he immediately waved his hand happily. Grandmother! Only then did In Yuerong recall that there was another person in the villa. Auntie Chow observed In Yuerong's attitude before tentatively saying, there aren't many servants here, and we couldn't arrange to make a separate meal, so I allowed little young master to dine with you. It's just an extra pair of chopsticks. Chapter 2390. Tang Dang is angry without expressing any opinion. In Yuerong walked over to her seat, completely ignoring this additional person. She used lemon water to clean her hands before she started eating expressionlessly. When In Yuerong ignored him, Tang Dang didn't mind and stayed in his seat, unbothered. In Yuerong was vegetarian, so all the dishes on the table were vegetarian too. Auntie Chow worriedly looked at the little fella, afraid the food wouldn't be to his taste. Without surprise, what she worried about occurred. The little fella didn't raise his chopsticks to pick up any of the dishes or start eating. He just stared at In Yuerong with an unhappy expression on his cherub face. Auntie Chow cleared her throat and attempted to pacify the child. Little young master, our vegetarian dishes here are pretty good. Give them a try. Ajong entered, carrying a bowl of vegetable soup, and sarcastically said, Auntie Chow, he's a pampered and spoiled young master. So how could he be used to eating this kind of food? Auntie Chow frowned. It's normal for little children to be picky about food. Although Auntie Chow said that, she was still incredibly worried. When eldest young master dared to be picky about food in the past, he absolutely received very severe punishments. In Yuerong was irritated by their bickering and slapped her chopsticks on the table. Shut up. You're making a ruckus. Only then did Auntie Chow and Ajong finally quiet down. After saying that, In Yuerong turned to the stern-faced child, her expression displeased. Tang Dang didn't talk and maintained his stern expression, unblinkingly staring at In Yuerong. In Yuerong was about to say something when the little fella suddenly slipped out of the chair and swiftly darted toward In Yuerong. In Yuerong frowned with displeasure on her face, not knowing what his intentions were. Tang Dang stopped in front of her and stood on his tiptoes before gently pasting his meaty little hand on In Yuerong's boiling forehead. The little fella's warm hand touched her without warning, startling In Yuerong. It wasn't only In Yuerong. Ajong and Auntie Chow also jolted in fright. Inuerong hated other people's touch the most, so by throwing a tantrum like this, the child was simply suicidal. Ajong shouted angrily at once. How insolent! Utterly rude. Little brat, what are you doing? Tang Tang stuck his hand on Inuerong's forehead for a while and pulled down Inuerong's neck so her head would be lowered. He decisively pasted his forehead on Inuerong's forehead. The little fella's adorably and childish face was stern, and he seriously declared, "Grandmother, you have a fever." Inuerong froze like a statue, her boiling forehead still touching the little fella's warm forehead, and a sweet milky fragrance was all she could smell. A pair of reproachful and worried eyes filled her field of view. Inuerong herself understood medicine, so she casually took her pulse and her brows furrowed. She really was sick. She was so busy that she hadn't detected it at all until now. "Madam, how are you?" Annie Chow finally snapped out of her surprise and hurried over. "It's just a fever. No need for the fuss," Inuerong said. Tong Tong's expression was abnormally somber. "Tong Tong's forehead is very hot. Your fever is very serious. You have to hurry and take medicine and rest." Auntie Chow carefully examined Inuerong and saw that aside from looking a little more tired than usual, Inuerong's state wasn't very different visually, so she couldn't tell that Inuerong was sick. She never expected the child's observation skills to be so meticulous and to be the first to discover it. So it turned out he wasn't unhappy because he was picky, but it was because his grandmother was sick. Chapter 2391. Tell a story. Annie Chow, go grab some medicine. When faced with the little fella's bright and dazzling gaze, Inuerong didn't know why she relented and asked to Annie Chow retrieve some medicine in the end. Inside the bedroom, Inuerong took some fever-reducing medicine and lay down on her bed. Tang Tang stayed by her side and was only relieved after watching Inuerong take her medicine. "Annie Chow, bring over the documents from my desk," Inuerong ordered. Annie Chow was about to act on her request when Tang Tang turned to Inuerong at once. "Grandma, you need to rest. No matter how important the work is, it's not as important as your health." Then the little fella looked at Annie Chow. "Annie Chow, turn up the thermostat and tell the kitchen to prepare some plain porridge. From now on, politely refuse all visitors and request sick leave from the arbitration council on Grandma's behalf." The little fella efficiently made these orders in a few words. Auntie Chow stood dazed in her spot. From the side, Ajong was disdainful. Was this little brat trying to revolt? Where did he think he was? He actually dared to boss people around here. Madam would definitely erupt in fury this time, right? Since Madam hated people who overstepped and broke rules the most. Inuerong stared at the little fella in front of her for a long while before casting her eyes down and chuckling lightly. Perhaps it was due to her weak health that her face appeared softer than normal. "You're quite bossy, little fella." Based on Inuerong's attitude, she didn't look displeased. "Didn't you hear? Do as he said." Inuerong turned to Annie Chow. Annie Chow breathed a sigh of relief and was joyous as she quickly went to make the arrangements. Meanwhile, Ajong froze, flabbergasted after Annie Chow and Ajong left. Only Inuerong and Tang Tang remained in the room. Inuerong leaned against the headboard. "How did you know I had a fever?" The little fella blinked. "Because Grandma looked really unwell." "Is that so?" Inuerong was already used to putting up a pretense and not allowing herself to reveal any flaws under any circumstance. So even Annie Chow, who had always been by her side, didn't see it. Yet, this child managed to detect she was unwell with a single glance. It was probably because children's eyes were more innocent, so they could detect some things other people couldn't see, right? "Grandma, is it hard to sleep? How about I tell you a story?" Tang Tang suggested. "As you wish." Inuerong closed her eyes. "Then I will start." Tang Tang cleared his throat before using his childish voice to start his storytelling. A long, long time ago, there lived a little girl in the forest. The little girl's grandmother weaved a red hood for the little girl that she particularly liked and wore every day, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood went to the other end of the forest to bring a meal to her grandmother, but she unexpectedly ran into a big gray wolf on her way. That big gray wolf was very hungry and pounced on Little Red Riding Hood as soon as he saw her. However, after the big gray wolf pounced, he didn't eat Little Red Riding Hood. Grandma, do you know why the big gray wolf didn't eat Little Red Riding Hood? Why? Before Inuerong realized it, she'd already asked. Tang Tang replied with a grin. Because the big gray wolf found Little Red Riding Hood too cute, so he wanted to be friends with Little Red Riding Hood and didn't want to eat her anymore. A smile rippled in Inuerong's eyes. Is that how the story goes? Yes, it is. Do you want to hear more, Grandma? I have a lot of stories. I can keep telling them. Chapter 2392, Don't Be Afraid, Grandma, as the little fella's childish voice surrounded her. Inuerong slowly closed her eyes and entered dreamland. Her sleep was particularly sound and uninterrupted, and Inuerong slept from evening to the middle of the night, only jolted awake by a clap of thunder. As lightning flashed and thunder clapped, a raging storm surged and gales howled in the night, the shadows of the swaying trees resembling ghosts madly dancing outside the window. Inuerong reflexively glanced outside the window with a furrow of her brows. After lying there for a moment, she sat up and covered herself with a jacket before walking out of her room. She stopped in front of the room next door and pushed open the door. In the bedroom, a faint lamp was lit on a nightstand, and the little fellow was lying in bed, sound asleep and unperturbed by the thunder outside. Inuerong looked at Tang Tang, her brows locked together, vexed. She didn't linger and turned to leave. However, as she left, she accidentally stumbled into the chair by the bed, making a bang. The child in bed groggily woke up. Grandma, when the little fella discovered her presence, Inuerong cleared her throat and answered, Tang Tang sat up as he rubbed his eyes before sleepily extending his arm and touching Inuerong's forehead, checking if Inuerong's fever had reduced. Then he yawned and looked at Inuerong, curious. Grandma, why did you come over? Oh, I know. Are you scared, Grandma? As he said that, he patted Inuerong's back with his little hand. Don't be scared, Grandma. My mommy said lightning and thunder are natural phenomena and there aren't ghosts in this world, so you don't need to be scared. The little fella earnestly explained all this to Inuerong and even shifted over on the bed toward the inside. Grandma, if you're scared, you can sleep with Tang Tang. Although Inuerong didn't want to admit it, she came to see the child out of concern, not expecting to end up being the one comforted. On the bed, the child wore the pajamas prepared for him by Annie Chiao. The fuzzy pajamas matched the little fella's fair cheeks and sleepy eyes and made him exceptionally adorable. Agio was just as charming and adorable when he was younger, but Agio was akin to an exquisite but soulless and emotionless porcelain doll. His eyes never contained innocence, light, and warmth of this sort. Inuerong became absent-minded, dusty memories from ages ago surfacing in her mind. A long, long time ago, when she was still a little girl, she liked children the most. Since when did she start hating them so much? Was it when Si Huaizhong and that woman secretly got together, or when their illegitimate children were born one after another, or when she had a child with Si Huaizhong after much effort, but the child was ignored and viewed as a burden by him? No need. Go back to sleep. Inuerong's expression quickly regained its normal facade, and she turned to leave the bedroom. Perhaps sick people were prone to letting their imaginations run wild. After all, her behavior tonight was truly too abnormal. The next morning, Inuerong's fever had fully subsided. She'd taken a sick day from the arbitration council and would be resting at home today. Early in the morning, Tang Tang sought out Inuerong and wasn't placated until he confirmed she was well again. They had just finished eating breakfast when Annie Chiao led a young woman into the dining room. Madam, Manager Zhang has personally brought over the newest season of clothes. Would you like to take a look? Inuerong didn't even look up and casually waved her hand. You decide. Chapter 2393. This one is pretty. Annie Chiao quickly responded. Madam, the clothes this season are decent, so you should choose yourself Your style is too monotonous. It's time to get some new additions. Every time new styles came out, Annie Chow would ask the stores to bring them to the house for Yin Yuerong to select, but Yin Yuerong either had Annie Chow decide or would choose the same 3 styles every time in black and black alone, never picking anything else. Since there wasn't anything to do today, Yin Yuerong agreed. Bring them inside then. Yes. Annie Chow quickly asked the manager to bring the clothes inside. It wasn't Manager Zhang's first visit, but every time she came, she still couldn't help looking at this beautiful and aloof director of the Arbitration Council. This director seriously maintained herself too well. However, she just never dressed up. If she put even a smidgen more effort into her looks, she would definitely be more breathtaking. Manager Zhang had her workers move all the clothes inside, lining them up in one row for Yin Yuerong to choose at her leisure. Yin Yuerong tilted her head and randomly pointed at several options. This one. As expected, every outfit Yin Yuerong picked was black and formal and old-fashioned, not sparing a glance to the rest. Out of professional habit, Manager Zhang couldn't help walking to a navy blue dress and making a suggestion. Director Yin, this one is also pretty with a classic style, so it wouldn't be too forward, and the color particularly complements your skin. Yin Yuerong looked up and apathetically glanced at the aforementioned dress. Ugly. Manager Zhang's expression stiffened, and she pointed at a more standard purple dress. What do you think about this one? Yin Yuerong was too lazy to even speak this time, her expression clearly expressing her disdain. Manager Zhang awkwardly withdrew and didn't say anything else. Annie Chow spoke up from the side. Madam, I think the 2 styles Manager Zhang recommended are very pretty and suitable for you. Why don't you give them a try? Yin Yuerong coldly glanced at the other woman. You want me to wear that? Auntie Chow was exasperated and was about to speak when Tang Tang declared, having entered at some point in time, both of those are ugly. They aren't worthy of my grandma. Annie Chow reflexively turned to the arrival. Little young master. After Yin Yuerong saw the little fella and heard what he said, her expression eased a little. Manager Zhang was initially unhappy upon hearing that, but when she saw the speaker was an adorable child, her displeasure dissipated. Children's words carried no harm. This is, Manager Zhang automatically inquired. Andy Chow made the introductions. This is our little young master. Little young master? Since when did the Yin family gain a little young master? She had heard that the Yin family's eldest young master, who'd left home a long time ago, did have an illegitimate child. Could this be that child? However, Manager Zhang didn't dare to delve into other people's secrets, so she quickly greeted him. Hello, little young master. May I ask which one you like? Which one do you think suits your grandmother? You can help your grandmother choose. Yin Yuerong remained seated and didn't attempt to stop the proceedings. Tang Tang walked to the row of clothes, treading back and forth and surveying everything earnestly, as if he was truly sifting through them. In the end, Tang Tang stopped in front of a black gown. Auntie Chow hastily noted, Little young master, Madam already chose this one earlier. Tang Tang shook his head. I like the dress next to this black one. Grandma will definitely look good in this. The one next to the black gown? Next to the black gown was a red woman's suit. The style was trendy but not overly forward, and the embroidery on the neckline and edge of the skirt was very exquisite. Chapter 2394. Bring it over. I will try it on. Manager Zhang's eyes lit up. Little young master's taste is very good. This set is this season's most outstanding product, but this style is particularly polarizing, so normal people wouldn't dare to wear it. If it was you though, madam, you could rock it for sure. However, Yin Yuerong didn't look like she'd choose this dress no matter what based on her personality, which was why the manager hadn't recommended it at all. Tang Tang pattered over to Yin Yuerong. Grandma, wear this. This one is pretty. Yin Yuerong furrowed her brows. In all fairness, the outfit Tang Tang chose was truly the best-looking one in the entire selection. Her younger self would have definitely chosen it, but now... Yin Yuerong aloofly glanced at the outfit. Is that so? I don't see anything pretty about it, though. Tong Tong's eyes sparkled. It's pretty. You'll definitely look especially pretty when you wear it, Grandma, like a goddess. Try it on, Grandma. Tang Tang wants to see Grandma wear it. The color is ugly, In Yuerong retorted, but it's very pretty. Look, Grandma, Tang Tang is also wearing red today. In Yuerong stayed silent for half a day before finally saying, bring it over. I'll try it on. Auntie Chiao. Manager Zhang. The two of them never expected In Yuerong to actually agree and took half a day to realize what had happened. Yes. I'll bring it over right now. Manager Zhang hastily took the outfit off the hanger. In Yuerong accepted the outfit and entered a side room to change. After waiting for an eternity, In Yuerong finally finished changing and came back out. The second she stepped out, all the servants in the room froze, their eyes shooting open. Normally, their madam wore purely black clothes and covered herself tightly. This was their first time realizing their madam was so good-looking and elegant. This outfit was truly very selective in its wearer, and normal people couldn't tame it. Only someone of In Yuerong's age and aura could dominate this outfit completely. So much that her entire demeanor underwent a transformation, and every tinge of bleakness dissipated from her aura. She did appear imperious and domineering still, but she was also bright, beautiful, and vivacious. Madam, you look so good wearing this. Annie Chiao involuntarily recalled a younger In Yuerong. Manager Zhang also lauded her endlessly. Little young master's taste is truly too great. This color really suits you, madam. Grandma is so pretty. Grandma matches Tang Tang now. The little fella happily skipped over. As In Yuerong stood in front of the mirror and saw her appearance, she almost didn't dare to recognize it. Is this me? She couldn't remember how many years it had been since she put any effort into dressing up and seriously choosing an outfit for herself. Madam! At this moment, Zhang hastily dashed inside and was about to speak when he saw In Yuerong in front of the mirror. He was startled. He'd never seen In Yuerong wear such bright-colored clothing. What was going on? Don't tell me it was the brat again. Zhang didn't have time to think about it through and quickly reported, Madam, there's news of an emergency meeting from the Arbitration Council, and they require you to immediately head over. In Yuerong immediately replied with a serious expression, Understood. I will head there now. Madam, the people here to pick you up are waiting outside already, Zhang added. In Yuerong was originally planning to change into a different outfit first, but changed her mind upon hearing this and started walking outside. Let's go. Half an hour later, inside the Arbitration Council building's conference room, everyone was fervently discussing business related to Qinzhou when a knock was heard and a woman entered. No one recognized the newcomer at first. When they realized it was In Yuerong, nobody could suppress their astonishment. Chapter 2395. Do you really have a heart? Shocked exclamations reverberated throughout the conference room. What's going on? This is In Yuerong? This is the first time I've realized Director In is so beautiful. Even at her age, I can still see her beauty. She's a lot more charming than those young women. Director In was a well-renowned beauty years ago, all right? It's just that she dressed like a widow afterward and looked unapproachable and cold. So everyone forgot. Several older higher-ups were aware of the inside story back then and couldn't help but remark, say, what was that guy from the C clan thinking back then? Why would he disregard such a gorgeous beauty with a background and insist on abandoning everything to elope with an impoverished girl from China? To me, what's hardest to understand is In Yuerong, right? With her qualities, what man would be unobtainable for her back then? Why did she vehemently latch on a Si Huaizhang? Her story is too pitiful. When Yi Lingjun heard everyone straying further and further from the topic at hand, he cleared his throat and interrupted their discussion. He turned to In Yuerong and said, Please sit, Director In. How are you feeling? In Yuerong nodded curtly. Thank you for your concern, President. I'm fine now. Ah, that's good. Yi Lingjun couldn't help but feel suspicious as he said that. In Yuerong was a workaholic and had never taken a sick day since she started with the Arbitration Council. One time, there was an assassination attempt on her, and she took a knife to her abdomen, but she still attended a meeting the next day with bandages around her waist. This was her first time requesting a day off, and based on what her housekeeper said on the phone, it was a minor illness such as a cold and fever. This was truly surprising. Then, when Inuerong appeared today, she was dressed totally different than her norm, so this was naturally eye-catching. Iling Jun couldn't help but wonder why Inuerong was behaving so abnormally all of a sudden. At the same time, another attendee of the meeting today, Si Yihin, was also imperceptibly examining Inuerong. He didn't pay attention to what she wore and was merely trying to assess Tong Tong's situation based on her expression. Si Yihin sent people to covertly scout at the Yin estate and learned that Tang Tang wasn't there and was probably transported elsewhere in secret. He suspected Tang Tang was moved to another manor that belonged to Inuerong, but that manor was under tight surveillance and Inuerong's confidants had full control of the area, so he was unable to obtain any information. After the meeting ended, in the hallway, Si Yihin called out, "Director Yin." Inuerong appeared to have predicted Si Yihin would seek her out, so she calmly turned around. "Do you need something?" Si Yihin cut straight to the chase. "When are you planning to release Tang Tang, Director Yin?" Inuerong aloofly replied, "It's my first time meeting my grandson after all, so I'll naturally keep him for several more days." Si Yihin's face was frosty. "I'm afraid your adopted son won't last several more days." Inuerong mockingly smiled. Agio, I always thought you knew Mom well. Why did you think you could threaten me with Yin Hong?" Si Yihin knitted his brows. One also said something similar. However, Inuerong had no scruples about replacing him with Yin Hong and cemented Yin Heng's inheritance of the position of family head. She even once risked her life to save Yin Hong. So how could she disregard her adopted son's life? Inuerong retracted her smile, and ice enveloped her eyes. "I'm unconcerned about Yin Heng's survival. If you like, you can keep him. Whether you kill or cut him into pieces, do as you wish." Si Yihin coldly stared at the woman in front of him with a bottomless darkness in his eyes. "Inuerong, do you really have a heart?" Chapter 2396. Adding fuel to the flames, how could someone be heartless and cold-blooded to this extent? Was there anything she cared about? When those icy words were spoken, Inuerong's spine stiffened. A moment later, Inuerong slowly looked up. "Good son, you finally realized the kind of person your mother is. That's good, isn't it?" Inuerong paused briefly before continuing. "Oh right, I had something to tell you. That child, what's his name? Tang Tang, was it? That little fella truly resembles his mother too much. He's just as disgusting. Don't worry, I will keep him and treat him well." Inuerong. A bone-chilling coldness exploded from Si Yihin's eyes. Without another word, Inuerong turned and left. At the Si residence, when Si Yihin returned, Lin Kei nearly thought the arbitration council building was bombed since he had seriously never seen Si Yihin's expression looking this terrible. Lin Kei hid far away before asking, Ninth brother, what's going on?" As soon as Yi Wan heard Lin Kei talking to Si Yihin, she rushed over. Lin Kei immediately shuffled over. "Ninth sister, hurry over and ask." Ninth brother's expression is too terrifying. Yi Wan slowly walked over and sighed softly when she saw Si Yihin's appearance. "Did you see your mother?" Si Yihin remained silent, and Yi Wan knew her guess was close to the mark. "You guys argued, right?" Yi Wan was exasperated. "Considering your personalities, it's the same as planets colliding when you meet. It's absolutely impossible for matters to be resolved through negotiation, and that's just adding fuel to the flames." Lin Kei nodded frantically. "Sister-in-law, you seriously know them too well." Si Yihin finally spoke. Sorry." Yi Wan gently embraced the man. "Why are you apologizing to me? It's not your fault. Having a mother like that was already his biggest tragedy, so how could it be his fault?" Si Yihin pinched his brows. "Lin Kei, immediately send people to investigate. As soon as you confirm Tang Tang is at Wanmei Villa, dispatch every person there, including the men from Azura." Lin Kei was dumbfounded. "Damn, what are you planning, ninth brother? Are you trying to raid them forcefully?" Yi Wan was also surprised. Inuerong's power can't be underestimated, and this is also Tinshui City, Inuerong's territory. Wan, you don't know her. If we allow this to drag on, Tang Tang will be in danger. Inuerong might even detain Tang Tang for the rest of his life, unwilling to release him. Si in absolute wouldn't permit Tang Tang to experience what he did. Upon hearing that, Yi Wanwan's expression also turned grim, and she found herself in a dilemma. She had actually carefully contemplated this before. There really wasn't any reason for Inuerong to detain Tang Tang. As Ling Jun said before, her pride merely took a hit, and after a few days of mellowing out with Ling Jun mediating things between them, she would likely release Tang Tang. However, Si-Hin was Inuerong's son, after all, and he naturally knew her well. Inuerong probably said something when they saw each other today, which was why he was so aggravated. Fine. After we determine Tang Tang's location, I'll request First Elder to bring some people over too, Yuan Wan said in the end. She couldn't hold back anymore when it came to Tang Tang's safety. At Wanmei Villa, when Inuerong returned, her expression was exceptionally horrible. Every servant trembled with fear and stayed quiet as a statue. Even Zhong didn't dare to approach. Chapter 2397. Shouldn't anger a girl, Auntie Qiao cautiously approached and inquired, "Madam, what happened?" Inuerong silently entered her study and stayed inside. Sometime later, Tang Tang walked over. Auntie Qiao, where's Grandma?" Auntie Qiao was fretting with worry when she saw Tang Tang, her eyes lighting up. "Little young master, your grandma seems to be in a bad mood and has been locked up in her room." Tang Tang frowned. "Did someone bully Grandma?" I don't know," Auntie Qiao replied. Even if it was the arbitration council, there wasn't anyone who would dare to antagonize their madam. "Auntie Qiao, I'm worried about Grandma. Can I go in and see Grandma?" the little fella asked. Auntie Qiao was hesitant. Zhong walked over with a cup of tea in hand and angrily glared at them. "The study is an important place. No one but Madam can enter." Auntie Qiao helplessly said, "Sorry, little young master. Unless Madam gives permission, no one is allowed to enter the study." Zhong harumphed and walked to the study door. He quietly said, "Madam, I've boiled calming tea for you." Before Zhong could finish, they heard the sound of a cup hitting the door with a bang and shattering. Scram! Zhong shivered from fright. Yes. It appeared Madam was rather infuriated this time. It had been a long time since they had seen Madam this angry. Tang Tang frowned deeply and stood in front of the door, gently knocking on the door. "Grandma, it's Tang Tang. Can I enter?" Zhong immediately glared at him. "Little brat, how dare you make this much noise? Do you want to die?" Inside the study, when Inuerong heard the child's voice, she involuntarily recalled the child's father and his inquiry today, and she became even more agitated. A second later, the study door was abruptly pulled open. Inuerong stood at the doorway with a dark expression and looked at Zhong. "Have you argued enough?" Zhong didn't dare to say anything in his fright. Inuerong was irritated. "Go to the punishment hall yourself and receive your punishment." Disbelief filled Zhong's face. "Madam, I was just worried about your health and boiled a cup of tea for you. It's clearly this little brat who's undisciplined and keeps disturbing you, madam." Inuerong ignored him and peered at the child by her feet. She saw his face, which extremely resembled his father, and her face chilled further. "Who allowed you to make a ruckus here?" Inuerong was about to launch into a rampage when the child extended his short little arms, a pouty, aggrieved expression on his face as he looked at her tearfully. He childishly said, "Tang Tang's worried about Grandma. Hug me, Grandma." Inuerong 1 second, 2 seconds. Perhaps it was because his grandmother was ignoring him that the little fella's gaze became more aggrieved. 3 seconds. This chapter is scrapped from Read Light Novel. Inuerong bent down and picked up the child. "Auntie Qiao, Zhong, what did I just see?" Madam actually hugged this little brat." Inuerong then carried Tang Tang into the study and slammed the door with a bang. After entering the room, Inyurong set Tang Dang down but didn't kick him out, so Tang Dang pattered over and glued himself to her. The little fella asked with concern, "Grandma, why are you sad?" Inyurong was startled. "Sad? Why did this child say I'm sad?" "Grandma, which big Mina bullied you?" Inyurong glanced at the little fella. "What if the Mina was your dad?" Tong Tong's eyes turned, and he replied without a hint of hesitation, "Then Daddy is also a big meanie." "Why? How do you know it's your dad's fault?" Tang Tang sounded matter-of-fact, because as a man, he should protect girls and shouldn't anger them. Chapter 2398. Melting ice. Regarding Tong Tong's answer, Inyuerong didn't know whether to cry or laugh. However, the sullenness enveloping her heart inexplicably dissipated with those child's simple words. The little fella comforted her softly. "Don't be angry, Grandma. You won't be pretty anymore if you're angry. Grandma, the plum blossoms are so pretty outside. Tang Tang will go see them with you." "All right," Inyuerong agreed. After Tang Dang and Inyuerong entered the room, Annie Chiao had been anxiously waiting outside the door, worried that Madame would redirect her anger at the child. To her surprise, the two of them walked back out not long later, and Inyuerong's expression was many degrees calmer. It had been cold recently, so Inyuerong glanced at the little fella next to her before instructing her housekeeper, "Prepare a thicker jacket for him." "Grandma, Tong Tong's health is really good. I'm not cold. It's windy in the plum forest." "Thank you, Grandma. Grandma is so good to Tang Tang." The little boy rejoiced. Inyuerong maintained her stiff expression without any other emotion. "Andy Chiao, go and prepare more clothing tomorrow." Andy Chiao immediately understood. Little young master actually managed to pacify Madame. She quickly nodded and responded, "Yes, yes, yes, Madame. I will go and make preparations now." After changing into a thick jacket, Inyuerong and Tang Dang walked to the plum forest. The little fella was wearing a jacket with white fur on the lapels and resembled a snowball as he walked in the snow. "Wow, so pretty. Come here, Grandma." Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. The little fella was dashing through the forest, but he came back a few steps later, returning to Inyuerong's side. He extended his hand and clutched his grandmother's hand. "Grandma, I'll hold on to you. Don't slip." Inyuerong peered down at her hand in the little fella's grasp and lifted it a centimeter, but didn't pull away in the end. During their walk, the little fella kept chattering with her, evident that he wanted to make her happy again. "Grandma, did you plant all these flowers?" "Grandma, I'll take a photo for you." "Grandma, the snow is so white. It's as white as Great White's fur." "All right, Great White is a giant white tiger. He's my friend." White tiger. Inyuerong seemed to have recalled something, a hint of somberness creeping into her face. "That's right. Great White is really soft and really cute. You'd definitely like Great White if you saw him, Grandma. I'll introduce him to you later, Grandma." "All right, there's also Great Black. Great Black is a black panther." 2 rows of big and small footprints were stamped onto the snow-covered ground, extending into the depths of the plum forest. After Inyuerong and Tang Dang admired the blossoms for a period of time, they returned to the study. This chapter is scrapped from Read Light Novel. Tang Dang had broken a branch of plum flowers and helped Inyuerong place it into a vase on the desk. With a splatter of dark red, the solemn and cold study appeared much livelier. Inyuerong opened a drawer on her desk and pulled out a fountain pen. This pen appeared to have been custom-made with plum blossom prints carved onto the surface. There was also a button on the body of the pen, which was equipped with a recording function. "Grandma, this pen is so pretty." "For you." Inyuerong handed the fountain pen to him. "It's to thank you for your plum blossoms." "Thank you, Grandma." The little fella happily accepted it and carefully stored it in his pocket. Then he leaned over and smacked a kiss on Inyuerong's cheek. Inyuerong appeared to be unaccustomed to this level of intimacy, and her body stiffened. She expressionlessly said, "It's just a pen." Tang Dang seriously shook his head. "It's not. It's a pen given to me by Grandma." The next morning, The minute Tang Dang got up from bed, he noticed there were a lot of newly prepared clothes in his room and one big, colorful container on the table. When he opened the container, he realized it was filled to the brim with milk candy, the kind that Tang Dang gave Yurong the other day. Chapter 2399. This is the time for growth in the following days. Yurong mainly stayed at Wanmei Villa. Outside Wanmei Villa, the security turned stricter and everyone was on high alert. However, inside the villa, it was a completely different atmosphere. After Yurong returned from the arbitration council in a terrible mood, all the servants were certain their next few days would be disastrous. To their surprise, Yurong's mood returned to normal at the turn of a head, and she even appeared to be in a better mood than normal. Annie Chow was euphoric. She originally hoped Yurong would come around to it and quickly release the child, but now she sincerely wished Little Young Master could stay several more days. After Little Young Master's arrival, while Madame might have been as unreasonable as always, she was also extraordinarily patient in front of Little Young Master. Plus, Little Young Master was so adorable, so all the servants in the villa grew to like him very much within a few short days. Since that day, Yurong tacitly permitted Tang Tang to enter the study and her bedroom as he wished. Outside the window, the winter sun cast rays of warmth into the room. Yurong was handling her business affairs on her desk, while Tang Tang quietly stayed nearby and drew. The grandmother and grandson duo was unusually harmonious, displaying the comforts of life. Auntie Chow softly knocked on the study door. "Madam," Yurong called out. "Enter." When Auntie Chow entered and saw the scene inside, the corners of her eyes involuntarily reddened. "Madam, what dishes would you like today?" "I'll ask the kitchen to prepare them," Auntie Chow said. Yurong didn't look up. Anything is fine. She had never been particular about food. And so, Auntie Chow turned to Tang Tang. "Little Young Master, what about you? What do you want to eat?" Tang Tang set down the coloring pencil in his hand and mulled it over before announcing, "Auntie Chow, I want to eat sweet and sour spare ribs." Auntie Chow looked troubled upon hearing that. Yurong had been a vegetarian all these years, so all 3 meals prepared at the Yin estate each day were vegetarian dishes without exception. Auntie Chow looked at Yurong and probed, "Madam, how about we ask the kitchen to prepare a meat dish?" Upon seeing the displeasure on Yurong's face, Auntie Chow promptly added, "After all, madam, this is the time that children grow." When Yurong heard Auntie Chow say time to grow, she answered, "You can." Auntie Chow turned joyous. "Great, I'll go make preparations now." Similar scenes played out in the next few days. As long as it was the Little Young Master's request, Yurong might look unhappy, but she would fulfill nearly all of his wishes in the end. "Grandma, you've been working for 2 hours in a row. You need to rest. Tang Dang wants to talk to you." The little fella pattered over to his grandmother. Yurong put down the document she was holding. Talk about what? The little fella had basically become her overseer now and insisted on accompanying her when she worked every day. When it was time, he'd urge her to rest and converse with her. At first, she only listened, but later on, she got used to this child seeking her out for conversation and slowly started responding. Tang Tang inquisitively asked, "Were you the one who named Daddy, Grandma?" Tang Tang immediately asked another question. "Where did you get Daddy's name? What does it mean?" Yurong's expression became dazed. "It was a long time ago, so I don't remember well. It was probably because it was a night in the 12th lunar month when I gave birth to your father, and it was very cold that night. The details of that night were very fuzzy in her memories. The only crystal clear detail was cold, bone-chilling coldness." Chapter 2400. Cook herself. Tang Dang seemed to be at a loss for words. "The night you gave birth to Daddy was very cold. So you called him Yin one? Grandma, you named him so casually." Yurong's face was a bit chilly at first, but the corners of her lips turned up with mirth due to the little fella's expression. "Is that so?" Tang Tang immediately replied, "Yes. It was too casual." Tong Tong's name was the result of very serious brainstorming by Mommy. Tong Tong's name? Yeah, Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao. Then what's the meaning behind your name? Yin Yuerong inquired. Tang Tang blinked. Guess Grandma. Yin Yuerong considered it for a moment. Upright and honest and secluded solitude. Tang Tang shook his head and proudly boasted. Nope. It's because my mommy particularly liked to eat sweet and sour spare ribs one. So mommy named me Nye Tang Xiao. Yin Yuerong. Sweet and sour spare ribs. Are you sure she didn't name you too casually? That little fella continued to explain to Yin Yuerong, particularly jubilant. Sweet and sour spare ribs is mommy's favorite dish. By using her favorite thing to name Tang Tang, it means mommy really likes Tang Tang. Doesn't it sound good, Grandma? Yin Yuerong looked at the little fella's lively expression and sparkling starry eyes, and her own gaze gradually softened involuntarily. It's a very good name. It appeared to be a very casual name, but the meaning actually turned out to be this warm. Tang Tang sighed regretfully. Unfortunately, both my daddy and mommy don't cook well, and the sweet and sour spare ribs they make isn't good. Grandma, do you know how to make sweet and sour spare ribs? When Yin Yuerong heard this, she fell into silence for some reason and didn't say anything. She had nearly forgotten she actually knew how to cook. 4C Huaizhong. She mastered an array of culinary skills. However, he didn't eat anything she made even once. Instead, she ran into him at the office once, eating the boxed lunch that woman made for him. The lunch was poorly made and appeared a little burnt even, but he treated it like a treasure. He even flew into a terrible rage toward her because she knocked over the food that woman made. Ever since then, she hadn't cooked. Tang Tang called, Grandma. Grandma? Yin Yuerong returned to the present. I know a little. Anticipation and admiration filled Tong Tong's face immediately. Really? Grandma knows how to make it? Yin Yuerong asked. You want to eat it? Tang Tang nodded truthfully. I want to eat it made by Grandma. At the same time, inside the kitchen, Zhong was currently blowing his top. What kind of joke is this? You want to make a meat dish? Don't you know Madam has been a vegetarian all these years? It's already good enough that the little brat is receiving a mouthful of food. So how dare he be so picky? I have to inform Madam of this. Annie Chow was about to speak when Yin Yuerong's voice was heard behind them. Why did you want to see me? Zhong hastily stormed forward and complained, Madam, Annie Chow is getting more and more unruly. She actually wants the chef to cook a meat dish for the little brat. Doesn't he know Madam can't stand the stench of meat? What kind of intentions does she have? She clearly wants to antagonize you, Madam. Yin Yuerong aloofly glanced at him. Who said I told the chef to make a meat dish? The moment Zhong heard that, he became more arrogant. Andy Chow, you actually lied to me, saying it was Madam's order. You're seriously gutsy. Annie Chow was at a loss. Madam, this... Yin Yuerong leisurely rolled up her sleeves as she said, Auntie Chow, prepare the ingredients. I'll make it myself. Auntie Chow. Zhong. What? Madam is actually going to cook herself? Zhong was dumbfounded, unable to believe what he just heard. Chapter 24:01. Who is that gutsy? Inside Si Yihan's mansion. After several days of investigation and preparation, Si Yihan pinpointed Tong Tong's location and determined the situation regarding the security at Wanmei Villa. At the same time, all of their men were summoned and could be mobilized at any moment. As soon as Lin Ke thought about how they were going to attack the scariest place in Tianshui City, Wanmei Villa, he started trembling in fright. Wanmei Villa is the place Yin Yuerong specifically uses to nurture goo, so the ground is filled with poisonous insects and the forest surrounding it is filled with toxic air. No one in Tianshui City dares to approach it, Yuan Wan said. I requested my brother to have Dead Man make medicinal pouches. They'll be distributed to everyone later. They can help provide resistance against the poisonous insects and toxic air. As soon as Yuan Wan thought about how long Tang Tang had been in that frightening place, she burned with anxiety. Initially, she thought Yin Yuerong was merely being prideful and would definitely use Tang Tang to trade for Yin Hung after a few days. To their surprise, Jun conducted several probing rounds of negotiations with Yuerong, but the woman remained immovable as a mountain. After all, this was part of the Arbitration Council's territory, so if this matter escalated, the Arbitration Council couldn't ignore it, and Jun would be put in a difficult spot then. Hence, Yuan had been placating Siyin the past few days while patiently waiting for news from Jun. However, 7 days had passed, but Yuerong was still unwilling to release Tangdang, so they had no choice but to employ forceful methods. Ninth brother, ninth sister, how about we wait until later? It'd be better to go there in the middle of the night, right? Lin Ke persuaded. Siyin's gaze remained placid. Inform everyone we're departing immediately. With every second they delayed, any degree of danger could befall Tangtang. Yuan looked exasperated. Do you think Yuerong would be unprepared? There isn't any difference whether we go during the day or night. Lin Ke couldn't refute Yuan. He simply wanted to die. In the end, Siyin and Yuan personally led a team of elites and headed toward Wanmei Villa. At Wanmei Villa, Annie Chow ordered people to purchase many fresh ingredients and even prepared an apron. Yuerong changed into a leisurely outfit before washing her hands and donning the apron. Then she started preparing dinner in the kitchen. She couldn't remember how many years it had been since she had cooked. She initially thought she'd be out of practice, but when she picked up the knife, a familiar feeling returned to her. That moment, she realized those memories had never truly disappeared or were forgotten. They had merely been repressed in the deepest depths of her mind. She never expected she'd cook again for someone one day. Since the kitchen was filled with smoke and soot, Yuerong forbade Tantang from entering, and the little fella could only longingly wait in the dining room. Little young master, Madam is cooking already, so be good and play here. It will only be a moment. Annie Chow gently reassured him. Okay, Tang replied. After saying a few more words, Annie Chow made her way back to the kitchen to continue assisting Yuerong. However, on her way there, someone rushed inside in a panic. Housekeeper Chow, Housekeeper Chow. Not good. Annie Chow frowned slightly. Why are you making a ruckus? What happened? The man dressed as a guard was panting as he said, Someone's trespassing, and they're very fast. They've arrived at the foot of the mountain already. Annie Chow was instantly enraged. What did you say? Who is that gutsy and dares to break into Wanmei Villa? Chapter 2402. Just a little hot. The other party has lots of people, and they're all experts. I'm afraid our people won't be able to hold them back for much longer. The guard anxiously responded. Annie Chow's expression was chilly. Take me there immediately. I like to see who's so suicidal. The guard gulped and cautiously said, Annie Chow, I think the leader seems to be eldest young master. Annie Chow was startled. Who? It's the eldest young master. And there's a pretty woman next to him. Eldest young master and a second Miss Nya? Annie Chow never expected eldest young master would employ the direct method of forceful trespassing to snatch someone back with his shrewdness. However, it also made sense. Annie Chow had been in Wanmei Villa the whole time, so she knew Yuerong actually treated the little young master very well, but outsiders wouldn't think so, eldest young master especially. Who knew how he viewed Madam? It was natural he'd burn with anxiety. Eldest young master knew Madam too well, and knew that since negotiations with Madam had proven useless, trespassing forcefully was the only solution left. As Annie Chow and the guard spoke, Siyin, Yuan, Lin Ke, and Yu Xiao had barged into the courtyard from the back. Lin Ke said, Ninth brother, ninth sister, we'll split up and look. Yuan nodded. Okay. As the quartet was about to split up their search, a voice suddenly came from the dining room. Mommy, Tang? Yuan incredulously turned around and immediately saw the little fella wearing a furry cotton-padded jacket, rapidly barreling toward her like a white snowball. Tang. Yuan swiftly darted over and tightly hugged the child. Mommy, Tang really missed you. Sorry. Mommy didn't come earlier, Sihin also quickly walked up, and the darkness in his face finally dispersed a few degrees upon seeing the little fella's good condition. Lin Kei and Yu Xiao also sprinted over. They were very surprised too. The four of them had secretly plotted for so long, thinking Tang Dang would definitely be imprisoned in the most secure underground prison at Wanmei Villa. Because of this, they researched how to break into the prison for several days and finally came to a solution. Who would have expected them to run into this little fella as soon as they entered the villa? "Baby, how are you?" Yi Wanwan meticulously examined the child up and down and confirmed he didn't have any injuries. Judging from Tong Tong's complexion and expression, he wasn't frightened in the slightest bit. If she had to make a comment, it seemed like he was wearing too many layers of clothes. Even now, Lin Kei was still in disbelief. Damn, isn't this too easy? This isn't deception, right? Lin Kei couldn't be faulted for thinking like that. Si Yihin and Yi Wanwan were also vigilant. Best to be careful. Yi Wanwan grasped Tong Tong's hand and securely shielded him in her arms. Yu Xiao wore a solemn expression. "I'm afraid Director Yin is planning to bait us in her trap and catch all of us in one fell swoop. It was easy for us to enter, but it'll probably be difficult to leave." Yi Wanwan was still questioning Tang Dang with concern. "Baby, do you feel unwell anywhere?" Baby Tang Dang shook his head. "I don't. Tang Dang is very well. It's just..." Yi Wanwan was instantly nervous. "It's just what?" "It's just a little hot," Tang Dang replied. The little fella's cheeks were flushed red, and a light sheen of sweat also dotted his forehead, perhaps from running earlier. Chapter 2403. There's a type of cold called Grandma Thinks I'm Cold. Yuanwan was nervously looking at the little fella's round appearance and suddenly discovered the cause. Baby, aren't you wearing too many clothes?" He was basically wrapped into a ball, so how could he not be hot? Although her baby's current appearance was bursting with cuteness, Tang Tang sighed and helplessly replied, "Actually, I'm not cold, but they insisted on making me wear this. There's a type of cold called Grandma Thinks I'm Cold." Yi Wanwan, Si Yihin, Yu Xiao, Lin Kei. Wasn't there something wrong with this situation? Even Si Yihin's brows furrowed. "Who made you wear the clothes?" Tang Tang replied, "Grandma. Grandma was afraid I was cold, so she made me wear more clothes." Si Yihin, Yu Wanwan, huh? Lin Kei repeatedly picked his ears. "Did I mishear? Tang Tang hasn't become delusional because he experienced a great shock, right?" Yu Xiao asked, "Little young master, how did you escape from the underground prison? Did someone purposely release you just now?" Tang Tang blinked, his face baffled. "What underground prison?" Lin Kei asked. "Weren't you imprisoned in the underground prison these past few days?" "I wasn't. I was sleeping in a room next to Grandma," Tang Tang answered. Lin Kei, Yu Xiao, Yi Wanwan, Si Yihin. The more Yi Wanwan heard, the more confused she became. She dazedly turned to Si Yihin. "Ajio, what's going on?" This was Si Yihin's first time feeling so clueless. He also had no idea what was happening right now. Judging from Tong Tong's words, not only was he not in prison the past few days, but he had also lived comfortably in the villa. Yin Yuerong was even concerned about his well-being and made him wear more clothes. "Ahem, do you know where your grandma is right now, Tang Dang?" Yuanwan asked. Tang Tang, "Grandma's making dinner for me in the kitchen." Yuanwan, what? Lin Kei, it's over, it's over." This child was probably too shocked, so his mind became muddled. In the midst of their confusion, footsteps were heard outside of the dining room. The four of them were instantly on guard and turned around. However, what they saw was Inyurong was wearing a light blue at-home outfit with a light pink apron wrapped around her, holding a plate of sweet and sour spare ribs. At the same time, Inyurong also saw the new arrivals in the dining room. All of a sudden, everyone was staring at each other, dumbfounded. Lin Kei, my eyes, are they blind? Yuanwan sluggishly replied, "You aren't the only blind one." The instant Inyurong saw the newcomers, her face chilled. She truly underestimated the nerve of these people. They actually dared to break into Wanmei Villa. At this moment, Tang Tang scurried over to Inyurong. "Grandma, Are my sweet and sour spare ribs done? In Yuerong's expression eased. The sweet and sour spare ribs that In Yuerong made were tempting in color, and its fragrance assaulted their noses. Even Yuanwan couldn't resist staring. Wow, Grandma is so awesome. In Yuerong appeared to treat these trespassing, uninvited guests like they didn't exist and looked at the little fella. What else do you want to eat? Tang Ding thought about it. Does Grandma know how to make tonghulu? In Yuerong replied, I can try. Joy filled Tong Tong's face. That's great. Daddy loves to eat tonghulu. In Yuerong, see Yihan. Chapter 2404. I trust Tang Ding. Although In Yuerong acted like a different person toward Tang Tang, her cold demeanor returned as soon as she looked at the others. In Yuerong swept her eyes over the guests, without a trace of warmth in her eyes. It appears you lot are treating my Wanmei Villa as a famous tourist spot, and want to come and leave as you please? Siyin narrowed his eyes. However, before Siyin could finish speaking, Tang Tang cheerfully interrupted. That's right, the scenery here is super good, and there's a really pretty plum forest in the back. Daddy, Mommy, uncles, you came at the perfect time. We can eat dinner together and go to see the plum blossoms after dinner. In Yuerong, Si Yihan, Yuanwan, Yu Xiao, Lin Ke, view the flowers, and also stay here to eat dinner. Was that a joke? It was already a miracle if In Yuerong didn't chop them into pieces and use them as fertilizer for the plum forest. In Yuerong's expression darkened and shifted several times. Tang Tang proudly bragged. You'll be able to taste Grandma's cooking in a moment. Grandma's so awesome. In Yuerong's expression changed several times before she emptied herself of emotion. She expressionlessly said, Dinner will arrive shortly. Do as you please. Then the four newcomers watched as In Yuerong did nothing to them and turned around to re-enter the kitchen. They were stupefied. My God, what does this mean? She's really allowing us to stay for dinner. Lin Ke looked like he'd seen a ghost. Yu Xiao was also somewhat panicked. Ever since stepping inside Wanmei Villa, things had progressed beyond his imagination. A moment later, all the dishes were served. In Yuerong, Tang Tang, Si Yihan, Yuanwan, Lin Ke, and Yu Xiao all sat at the same table. Lin Ke and Yu Xiao didn't dare to even breathe too loudly. They were actually sitting at the same table and eating dinner, food that In Yuerong personally cooked. Moreover, there was even a red, shimmering plate of tonghulu in the middle of the table. No one would believe it if they told this story. The only calm person around the entire table was probably Tang Tang. Although In Yuerong permitted the four people to stay, she completely treated them like air and started eating. The little fella first picked up a piece of the sweet and sour spare ribs for his mom. Mommy, hurry and try it. Yuanwan gulped. Sweet and sour spare ribs made by In Yuerong. Did she dare to eat it? However, in this situation, it also wasn't good if she didn't eat it, right? Yuanwan snapped out of it and hastily nodded. Okay. However, as she was about to open her mouth, Si Yihan stopped her with his hand. Don't touch it. Si Yihan evidently didn't trust In Yuerong. Si Yihan's little motion naturally didn't escape In Yuerong's eye. In Yuerong's hand around her chopsticks stiffened, and the aura around her chilled instantly. Yuanwan sighed with exasperation inwardly. She lowered her voice and said to Si Yihan, I know you don't trust her. Me neither. Yuanwan paused and glanced at baby Tang Tang. However, I trust Tang Tang. Moreover, with In Yuerong's abilities, if she wanted to poison you, she could do it without alerting you in the slightest. There was no way she'd use such a lowly method like poisoning their food. Then Yuanwan lowered her head and bit the piece of sweet and sour spare ribs. Si Yihan helplessly watched Yuanwan eat the piece of spare ribs, his chin tightly taut. Yuanwan, Si Yihan asked, what is it? Yuanwan replied, this is too delicious. Si Yihan. Chapter 2405. So delicious. Yummy, right? I told you Grandma is awesome. Grandma knows everything. Baby Tang Dang delightfully declared. Next to him, Yin Yuerong's face softened minutely. Daddy, you should eat too. Tang Dang picked up a piece of simmer-fried fish for Si Yin. Ninth brother, don't. Do you really trust any Rome? Lin K nervously grumbled. Si Yin didn't say anything and directly ate the piece of fish Tang Dang offered to him, mild surprise appearing on his face. He had thought Wan only said that because she was afraid Yin Yuerong would be angered otherwise. He didn't expect Yin Yuerong's cooking to really be wonderful. Daddy, is it tasty? Baby Tang Dang asked immediately. Si Yin was quiet for a long while before finally nodding. Yin Yuerong was startled briefly, but her expression quickly returned to normal. Since Si Yin was eating too, Yu Xiao had no choice but to also taste a piece. Damn, you guys are way too gutsy. Anyway, I won't eat it. I wouldn't eat it even if you threatened to kill me. Lin K frightfully shook his head. In the end, as Lin K watched the rest of his group appear to eat happily, he whispered, "Is it really that good? Let me try." Lin K cautiously picked up a piece from a dish, and his eyes lit up. Isn't this too delicious? Any Rongs actually this good at cooking? Finally, the whole table started eating for good, and all the dishes were wiped clean with Lin K eating the most. So delicious. As Yuan ate, she kept casting questioning glances at Si Yihan, and Si Yihan could only helplessly say that he'd never encountered a situation like this one. After all, Yin Yuerong had expressed her loathing and dislike toward Tang Tang in front of him multiple times, and even spat out vicious words in the arbitration council's hallway that day. However, after personally witnessing it for themselves, the reality was entirely different from their expectations. Tang Tang's reaction couldn't be faked. The little fella had been here for so many days, yet he was stable. He wasn't only stable, but his condition was also great, and he was well taken care of. Yin Yuerong even personally cooked for Tang Dang, and she, who never touched meat, actually cooked mostly meat dishes tonight. Furthermore, Yin Yuerong was clearly on the brink of an explosion earlier, but she actually allowed them over for dinner merely because of a sentence from Tang Tang. Si Yihan's eyes were akin to the deep sea thousands of feet below sea level, hidden currents swirling inside. The Yin Yuerong before him and the Yin Yuerong he knew were like two completely different people. However, this only applied to her interactions with Tang Tang. When it came to people other than Tang Tang, she was still that same Yin Yuerong. Otherwise, he would suspect the woman in front of him was an imposter. What's going on with you, Mom? I'm flabbergasted. Yuan anxiously bit the tip of her chopsticks. Perhaps you should ask your son. Si Yihan's gaze landed on the child sitting between Yin Yuerong and Yuan. Yuan mused over it for half a day before slapping her thigh and saying, Agio, I know the reason. Si Yihan turned to her. What is it? It must be because my son is too adorable. Si Yihan's expression was indescribable. Regardless of how adorable something was, it shouldn't affect Yin Yuerong. However, aside from that, he also couldn't figure out why Yin Yuerong's attitude toward Tang Dang was so strange. What? You don't believe me? Yuan raised her brows. Si Yihan didn't respond. His expression sufficed as an answer. Yuan tauntingly asked, Is that hard to understand? Didn't you fall in love with me at first sight because I was also too cute? Si Yihan said, That's not the same. Yuan grumbled, It's clearly similar logic. Chapter 24:06. Truly like Tang Tang, Lin K whispered, Say, ninth brother, aren't you too gutsy? You actually really ate it. Si Yihan silently glanced at Lin K, the one who ate the most. He never trusted Yin Yuerong. He merely trusted Wan. Tang Tang said, Daddy, this is the Tong Hulu you like. Yuan added, That's right. Tong Hulu is your dad's favorite. Si Yihan. And so, this meal passed in absolute harmony, and everyone inhaled the dessert too. After that, Tang Tang really led the group to admire the plum blossoms. Tang Tang exclaimed, Mommy, Tang Tang will take you to see the plum blossoms. Yuan, we're really going to see the plum blossoms. Yuan and Si Yihan exchanged a look. Right now, the top priority was to quickly get their baby out of here. However, despite sharing a whole meal together, they still didn't find an opportunity to voice that. They were very aware that they could reluctantly throw a veil of peace over everything. But once they said that, they probably couldn't feign peace even if they wanted to. Yi Wanwan was preparing to admire the flowers first before giving the matter further thought and suggested in a tactful manner. But Si Yihan spoke first. Si Yihan said, "Tang Tang, we should head back." Yi Wanwan could only quietly sigh and hold her forehead. Sigh. No wonder this mother and son duo had such an awful relationship. The second Si Yihan spoke, the seemingly warm atmosphere popped like a soap bubble that had shimmered under the brilliant sun, but was easily destroyed by the wind. Ruthlessness flitted through Yin Yuerong's eyes, and she reflexively turned to look at Tang Tang next to her. Yi Wanwan sharply detected Yin Yuerong's gaze, changing the instant it landed on Tang Tang. Although that change was nearly imperceptible, perhaps due to her innate maternal instincts, Yi Wanwan clearly saw a trace of warmth in Yin Yuerong's gaze and even reluctance. At first, Yi Wanwan also wondered if Yin Yuerong had some secret scheme. With Yin Yuerong's personality, she never liked to act in a circumvent manner and also wouldn't act to the extent of personally cooking for Tang Tang. Moreover, a child didn't know how to deceive people, and Tang Tang's reactions couldn't be faked. He also really liked this grandma. Yi Wanwan spent half a day to finally digest this truth. Yin Yuerong most likely truly liked Tang Tang. Otherwise, why would she allow Tang Tang to sleep in a room next to hers? Why would she have people prepare clothes for him? Why would she personally cook for Tang Tang? Which meant Yin Yuerong kept refusing negotiations with Ling Jun and was unwilling to release Tang Tang because she didn't want Tang Tang to leave. Tang Tang looked up. "It's time to go back." Si Yihan coldly glanced at Yin Yuerong. "Or are you saying you want to continue to keep Tang Tang here?" The atmosphere suddenly froze, and Lin Ke and Yu Xiao went on high alert. Before Yin Yuerong could respond, baby Tang Tang answered with a matter-of-fact expression. "Daddy, Grandma likes Tang Tang so much, so of course Grandma wants Tang Tang to stay." Si Yihan. When Yin Yuerong heard that, her typically expressionless face actually revealed a trace of stiffness and embarrassment, but she didn't refute Tang Tang's words in the end. Yi Wanwan saw Yin Yuerong's expression and finally confirmed her guess without a cinch. Hence, Yi Wanwan cleared her throat and said, we'll leave it to Tang Tang when he wants to go back. If Tang Tang is happy here, he can stay a few more days. Daddy and Mommy live nearby anyway, so we can come and visit you anytime." Chapter 24:07. Trouble you to take care of him. Yin Yuerong never expected Yi Wanwan to say that, astonishment evident on her face. She was well aware of how much this woman cared about Tang Tang. When Yin Hung abducted Tang Tang back then, she had no scruples about exposing her identity. Tang Tang looked at Yin Yuerong. "Grandma, can I speak privately with Mommy for a moment?" Yin Yuerong replied, "You can." Tang Tang dragged Yi Wanwan into a stretch of forest deprived of people. Nearby, Andy Chow secretly followed and hid behind a fake mountain. Mommy hugged. The little fella immediately started acting like a spoiled child the second they arrived in an empty spot. Yi Wanwan nearly melted from the cuteness. So how could she reject him? She hastily knelt down to embrace the little fella. "Mommy." The little fella looked a bit sad. Yi Wanwan quickly asked, "What is it?" The little fella cast down his head. "Mommy, if we didn't kiss Tang Tang." Yi Wanwan broke into a chuckle. Did this little guy pull her over here simply because of this? He probably found it embarrassing earlier because of too many people. Yi Wanwan hugged. The little fella rolled up like a dumpling and gently kissed his cheeks. The little fella still didn't appear too happy, and Yi Wanwan chuckled again before smacking another kiss on his cheeks. Finally, the little fella was satisfied. His cheeks were flushed and his eyes sparkling. "Tang Tang, Mommy has a question for you. Does Mommy want to ask about Grandma?" "Yes." Do you like Grandma?" Yi Wanwan probed. The little fella didn't hesitate before nodding with certainty. "Tang Tang likes Grandma. Grandmother acts like Mommy said. She might be hard to get along with and has a low EQ, but she's a very nice and gentle person." Only then did Yi Wanwan recall the things she told Tang Tang and coughed lightly. That's right, that's right. That's indeed the case. After hearing that, Yi Wanwan's worries finally eased up. Regardless of how Yin Yuerong treated other people, at least she wouldn't hurt Tang Tang. At the same time, behind the fake mountain, Andy Chow quietly listened to their conversation but realized she didn't need to continue after hearing that, so she covertly left. Yi Wanwan patted her son's head. All right then, if baby wants to stay, have a few more days of fun here. Daddy and Mommy will pick you up in a few days. Baby Tang Tang said, No need, Mommy. I'll ask Grandma to take me home in a few days. Yi Wanwan's eyes turned when she heard that. If they could really make Yin Yuerong send Tang Tang home herself, that'd be wonderful. After all, no matter what method they used to take Tang Tang away, they'd probably part on bad terms. If Si Yihin and Yin Yuerong clashed again, they'd waste the days Tang Tang spent here for nothing. And so, after hesitating for an eternity, Yi Wanwan decided to believe in Tang Tang. Okay. After chatting a little longer, they returned to the dining room. When Tang Tang returned, Yin Yuerong's gaze immediately shot toward him. Yi Wanwan held the little fella by the hand and looked at Yin Yuerong with a genial expression. Agio, and I happen to be rather busy these days. So can we trouble you to continue to look after Tang Tang for several more days? Yi Wanwan didn't mention how Yin Yuerong abducted Tang Tang at all. Shock swiftly flitted through Yin Yuerong's eyes, but she quickly calmed herself and went along with Yi Wanwan. She calmly replied, You can. Yi Wanwan smiled. Thank you for the trouble then. Si Yihin seemed like he wanted to speak, but Yi Wanwan sent him a pacifying look. Chapter 2408. There wasn't harm before the comparison, Yi Wanwan exclaimed. I told you my guess was right. Sure enough, your mom really likes Tang Tang. So we just have to go back now and wait for news from Tang Tang. Judging from Tang Tang and Yin Yuerong's interactions throughout this visit, Yi Wanwan and Si Yihin could tell they got along very well. However, Yin Yuerong's image in Si Yihin's mind was too deep-rooted, so he was unable to wholly believe it. Lin Ke exclaimed, Boss Tang Tang is impressive. He actually managed to take care of Annie Rong. I was wondering why Annie Rong acted so abnormally. It turns out she was tamed by Tang Tang. Then he cautiously glanced at Si Yihin. Why is there such a difference between a son and a grandson? I wager my ninth brother has never eaten food cooked by Annie Rong. It's seriously true that there isn't harm before the comparison. Yi Wanwan instantly glared at Lin Quebec. He really had to hit Si Yihin where it hurt. Huh? Yu Xiao chuckled. It's probably because a skip in a generation makes them closer. Many older generation folks are strict toward their children, but spoil their grandchildren. Lin Ke grumbled. But who would have expected Annie Rong to also have a normal side? Inside the study in Wanmei Villa, after Si Yihin and his group left, Annie Chow entered the study. What did they say? Yin Yuerong asked. Yin Yuerong's personality was both sensitive and paranoid, which wasn't something that could be changed immediately. Hence, when Yi Wanwan and Tang Tang were alone, she secretly ordered Annie Chow to follow them. Auntie Chow truthfully repeated Yi Wanwan and Tang Tang's conversation in the plum forest. Tang Tang likes Grandma. Grandmother acts like Mommy said. She might be hard to get along with and has a low EQ, but she's a very nice and gentle person. That's right, that's right. That's indeed the case. Furthermore, it appears second Miss Nia didn't mention to Tang Tang at all that you kidnapped him. A short few sentences caused Yin Yuerong's expression to change repeatedly. Auntie Chow continued. Of course, she doesn't truly think that, and probably just doesn't want any resentment or hatred to linger in the child's heart. However, this breadth of mind isn't something that those socialites can compare to. Although Yin Yuerong didn't say anything, she surprisingly didn't ridicule or retort like she did before. All that remained inside of her was a foreign feeling of having lost something, only to regain it again. Ask Tang Tang what he wants to eat tomorrow. Okay, I'll go right now. When Si Yihin and his group were trespassing on Wanmei Villa, Zhong went to the punishment hall to receive his punishment and only found out what had happened after leaving. This development was completely different from his prediction. In the middle of the night, Ajong quickly snuck into the dungeon to see In-hung. "Young Master In-hung, I'm afraid things are bad. What happened? Speak clearly." This evening, Si Yihin and that woman brought a bunch of people to break into Wanmei Villa. In-hang's eyes lit up. "What? Did you say Si Yihin actually broke into Wanmei Villa? Isn't that a good thing?" He had been hoping for them to hurry and start fighting until one side perished. In-hung could imagine what a hostile scene that was. What's the situation like right now? Do they start fighting? In-yuerong isn't an easy opponent, so Si Yin must have mobilized all available manpower, right? The security here must be less tight now. So it's a perfect chance for you to think of a way to get me out of here. After I get out, I will find a safe place to stay for a few days and wait 3 to 5 days. Within 2 weeks, both sides must be wrought with damage. At that time, I can appear as the head of the Yin family and clean up the mess. As In-hung spoke, his eyes turned brighter and brighter, his expression determined to win. He still didn't realize how awful Ajong's expression was. Ajong dawdled for an eternity before hesitatingly saying, "Ahem, young master, the events turned out differently than we expected." Chapter 24:09. Regret his past deeds. No wonder you managed to sneak inside so easily these past few days. Si Yihin probably doesn't have the time to care. In-hung was babbling nonstop when he suddenly heard what Ajong said. He paused before asking, "Different? What do you mean?" Ajong gulped. Maybe it was because Madam's attitude was too resolute, and she was unwilling to release the brat no matter what, that it was useless for even President Yi to act as a mediator. Hence, eldest young master was backed into a wall and dispatched a bunch of elites and attacked Wanmei Villa in the middle of the day with that woman in tow. I originally thought it would be a struggle to the death, but to my surprise, both sides were fine and didn't start fighting. There wasn't a hint of commotion, and moreover what? Moreover, Madam kept them for dinner, and they even took a walk in the plum forest afterward. In the end, Si Yihin didn't take away that little brat, and said they'd allow the brat to stay to play a few more days. Absolute nonsense. Young Master In-hung, I also didn't dare to believe it, but that's the truth. In reality, there's another matter I didn't dare to tell you. What kind of time is it now? Spit out already. An ominous feeling intensified in In-hang's heart. His typical pretense and courteousness morphed into rampaging aggression. Ajong quickly replied, It's that Madam started treating that little bastard better and better for some reason. She only had him stay in the neighboring room at first and ignored him for the most part. But eventually, she started caring about that little bastard's accommodations and well-being. She had Annie Chow buy new clothes and candy for that little bastard and even permitted him to enter and leave the study as he wanted. Every day, when Madam works, that little bastard keeps her company in the study. Today, Madam also broke her many years of solely eating vegetarian and personally cooked meat for that little bastard. Ajong spat everything out in one go before looking at the other man nervously. I originally thought Madam would definitely hate that little bastard, but who would have expected things to have gotten more and more out of hand? Madam is clearly indulging that little bastard like a real grandson. The more In-hung heard, the more awful his expression became. What did you say? Did you say Mother not only didn't torment that little brat, but also spoils that little brat a lot? In-yuerong was treating that little bastard like a real grandson? What a fantasy story. Ajong clutched the wounds he got from his punishment, furious hatred brimming from his eyes. It's the absolute truth. That little brat is just like his mom. I have no idea what kind of bewitching drug he gave Madam to have made someone like In-yuerong so docile. She isn't just spoiling him. It wouldn't be an overstatement to say she'd obey every wish he had. That day, Madam was in a bad mood, and I was serving her tea outside the study to placate her, but Madam ended up punishing me. However, that little bastard just had to utter a few words to soften up Madam, and Madam picked him up and carried him into the study. Zhong provided a lot of detail, so he definitely wasn't lying. In Hung had been by In Yuerong's side for so long, so he thought he knew her inside out. Who would have expected this kind of hiccup to happen? He had wholly relied on that little bastard to be the trigger for a war between Si Yihan and In Yuerong. Now, though, he tried to be clever and ended up with an egg on his face. There was a great possibility In Yuerong and Si Yihan's relationship might gradually improve because of this child. He simply shot himself in the foot. At this moment, In Hung was flooded with regret and punched the bars of his cell. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have kidnapped that child. He wouldn't have ended up like this. Chapter 24:10. Then I'll give her a ride. Young Master In Hung, what should we do now? That little brat is basically living in Wanmei Villa now, and Madame is increasingly lenient toward him. Because of him, she's not even pursuing the matter with that woman much anymore. Zhong continued. After all, the biggest conflict between Madame and eldest young master is that woman. If this continues and Madame and eldest young master's relationship improves, then the position of the Yin family head, damn it, if this continued and Si Yihan reconciled with Yin Yuerong, returned to the Yin family, and inherited the position of the family head, he'd become a scrap chess piece. Not only would Yin Yuerong disregard his survival, but she might also hold a grudge against him if she felt bad for her grandson. Young Master In Hung, you must hurry and think of a solution. Think of a solution? With my current state, what solution could I possibly think of? In Hung roared like a trapped beast, his expression stormy. Then In Hung's gaze shot toward Zhong like a viper's tongue. Zhong, now that you see Si Yihan possibly becoming the head of the Yin family, what? Do you want to forsake darkness for light? In Hung's chilly voice sent a shiver down Zhong's spine. I wouldn't dare. Why would this subordinate think that? This subordinate is fiercely loyal to young Master In Hung, without a stray thought. Young Master should know that. In Hung snorted. Loyal? It was merely because he held some heinous dirt on Zhong. If Zhong dared to betray him, he wouldn't live either. Young Master In Hung, the top priority right now is figuring out a solution. Zhong exclaimed anxiously. After digesting this information, In Hung calmed down a tinge. In Yuerong didn't express any intent to rescue him whatsoever after he was imprisoned for so many days, which was what caused him to have a breakdown and panic. Zhong didn't dare to disturb In Hung and cautiously waited on the side. A moment later, bloodthirsty amusement flitted through In Hung's eyes. Rome wasn't built in a day. Even if Si Yihan wants to improve his relationship with In Yuerong, it won't happen within a day or two. Say, if In Yuerong was ended now, who's the most likely person to succeed as the head of the Yin family? Zhong's eyes turned. You, of course, young Master In Hung. After all, you're still the future family head that Madame personally acknowledged. As Zhong spoke, his face paled. But Madame, he ended? Madame's perfectly fine. Why would she? Of course, nothing would happen to her if she's perfectly fine. But what if? I gave her a ride? In Hung's gaze was bone-chillingly cold. Zhong jolted in fright. Could it be that In Hung wanted to murder In Yuerong? But he was trapped inside this dungeon. How could he achieve that? Who was In Yuerong? Regardless of whether it was killing her outright or an assassination attempt or poisoning, In Hung couldn't accomplish it even if he wasn't imprisoned. In Hung seemed to be aware of what Zhong was thinking and snorted. It would be impossible to strike down In Yuerong even if it was Si Yihan. There's only one method to eliminate In Yuerong: borrow the hands of the Arbitration Council. Coincidentally, I happen to have an item that can force In Yuerong down, making her unable to crawl back up. What kind of item is it? Zhong gulped. To find that item, go to Qingyu Alliance and ask for a person named Wang Hu, and he'll give it to you. After obtaining the item, figure out a way to place it in Yuerong's study. You should know what to do after that without me directing you. Chapter 24:11. This might be a bit difficult. In Hung described it vaguely, but Ajong listened with trepidation and quickly said, "The sole act of putting an item inside Madame's study is impossible. You should know that no one can enter Madame's study." In Hung aloofly glanced at him. "Have you forgotten about that little bastard? That child?" Ajong was baffled. "Since that child can enter the study freely, you can cajole that child to bring the item inside and kill two birds with one stone," In Hung explained. "Cajole that little brat? That might be a little difficult," Ajong replied hesitantly. "What use are you if you can't even handle a child who's only a few years old? Raising a piece of garbage would be better." In Hung quietly insulted him before easing up and saying bewitchingly, "Ajong, how have I treated you all these years? You should know that everyone knows you're my person, so you can only survive if the head of the Yin family is me. Otherwise, if we allow Si Yihan to become the family head, do you think you will have any more good days ahead of you?" In Hang's words were beguiling, but Ajong also knew In Hung was right. If someone else became the family head, his fate would be miserable. However, if In Hung succeeded, he would be credited for assisting a leader in his ascension and would be superior to everyone else. In the end, Ajong gritted his teeth and agreed. "Young Master In Hung, leave it to me. This subordinate won't fail you." "Great," In Hung replied. Under the dark veil of the night, Ajong swiftly left and headed to the Qingyu alliance, as In Hung instructed. Wang, who had a good relationship with In Hung, which was why In Hung asked him to safeguard some important items for him. After arriving at the spot, Ajong reported his name, and a subordinate immediately led him to a nightclub. Inside a private VIP room, Wang, who tossed a brown paper bag at Ajong. "Here, this is the thing you wanted." Ajong hastily caught it. Since their conversation in the dungeon, Ajong had been wondering what it was that could knock In Yuerong off of her pedestal and make the Arbitration Council act personally. Ajong carefully opened the bag, his expression changing after one glance. The paper bag actually contained a secret account book that detailed all the records of Qin Zong's under-the-table dealings and some letters and documents. He never expected young Master In Hung to have obtained such an important item. After Qin Zong's fall from power, many higher-ups of the Arbitration Council were implicated. However, In Yuerong was extremely cautious and never did anything that violated the Arbitration Council's laws. She might have had a decent relationship with Qin Zong, but she wasn't impacted in the slightest after Qin Zong fell. Once this account book appeared in Yuerong's study, she'd be unable to wash herself of the wrongful accusation regardless of what she did. At that time, the Arbitration Council would definitely take action, and she'd probably be in a prison for the rest of her life. "Have you seen enough yet? If you have, then scram." Wang, who impatiently ordered him and didn't ask why Ajong wanted this item at all. This item was simply a hot potato in his possession, so it suited him perfectly that Ajong wanted to take it. "Why, yes," Ajong nodded frantically. After obtaining the item, Ajong immediately returned to Wanmei Villa. The sky was still dark, so Ajong first carefully loitered near the study to see if there was an opportunity to sneak inside. However, Ajong had worked for the Yin family for so long and knew Wanmei Villa like the back of his hand. He was aware that sneaking into the study was absolutely impossible. Hence, after thinking it over, he could only employ young Master In Hang's method and seek out that little brat to place this item. It'd be so covert that In Yuerong absolutely wouldn't discover it. Chapter 24:12. I'm Grandma's favorite. The next morning finally arrived. Ajong went to a store to buy a bunch of candy before secretly planning to seek out Tangdang. Ever since Tangdang started living there, In Yuerong had switched off her usual workaholic mode. On her day off today, she really rested at home and didn't go anywhere or work overtime. Although the bill revision assembly was imminent, In Yuerong remained calm and composed without her typical irritability, as though she had become a different person. Right now, Tangdang had just finished eating breakfast with In Yuerong. "Grandma, can I go to the plum forest to break off a few branches of plum blossoms?" Tang inquired, blinking his large eyes. From aside, Ajong inwardly snorted. That brat was truly undisciplined. Plum blossoms were In Yuerong's most favorite item. When a servant randomly touched a single leaf, they'd be severely punished. Even him, he accidentally broke a branch one time and received a round of scolding. So how could she permit this little brat to haphazardly break a branch? Ajong coolly interjected. These plum flowers are Madam's favorite. So how could you break them off willy-nilly? Although Annie Chow wanted to say something, she knew Yin Yuerong's rules, so she kept quiet. Yin Yuerong glanced at Tang Tang, but didn't seem angered. She placidly asked, "Isn't it good for the flowers to bloom on the branches?" Tang Tang pressed closer to Yin Yuerong and brightly smiled. It's pretty for the flowers to blossom on the branches, but Tang Tang thinks these plum flowers are better placed near my grandma than blooming on their branches. Yin Yuerong was startled briefly before the corner of her lips turned up in an almost gentle smile. Tang Tang added, "I wanted to break a branch to place on Grandma's desk so that Grandma could constantly see it. Wouldn't that be better? Madam, look at how filial little young master is." Annie Chow seriously liked this child more the more time she spent with him. She had forgotten how long it had been since Madam truly lived for herself. Ever since little young master got here, Madam's mood had improved more and more, and she smiled more frequently. Tang Tang paused and intentionally glanced at Ajong before saying, "Plus, Grandma's favorite isn't plum flowers anymore. I'm Grandma's favorite now." Ajong's expression was as dark as the bottom of a pan. PFT. A laugh broke out of Annie Chow. Even Yin Yuerong chuckled aloud. "You aren't humble at all." Ajong forced himself to remember that he still needed the little brat's help for something today, so he forcefully suppressed his rage, but menace filled his heart. Young Master Yin Hung was right. If they allowed this little brat to remain the favorite, his position would be nowhere in sight after the Yin family changed masters. In the plum forest, Ajong brought along the candy and secretly followed Tang Tang. When they reached a spot without any bystanders, Ajong called out immediately, "Little BR, little young master." Upon hearing him, Tang Tang turned back. "Oh, it's you, Ajong. Do you need something?" This child was clearly only 4 or 5 years old and had to look up at people, but his cold gaze made him look like he was born to look down at Ajong, sending waves of displeasure in the man's heart. "Little young master, these are candies and toys I bought for you. See if you like them." Ajong was fawning in his demeanor. Tang Tang raised his brows at the big, brimming bag of candy and assortment of toys in Ajong's hold, a glint flashing through his eyes. One who was solicitous for no reason hid evil intentions. Ajong saw the child's eyes light up, and his expression revealed how pleased he was with himself. "Little young master, do you want them? I can give all of this to you as long as you do me a tiny favor." Chapter 24:13. No one would hate my mommy, Tang Tang leisurely asked. "What favor?" Ajong looked to the left, and right before digging out an exquisitely beautiful wooden box carved with flowers. "Little young master, can you help me place this item in a drawer inside Madam's study?" Tang Tang glanced at the wooden box. "Why won't you place it yourself?" Ajong sighed before replying. "Little young master, you should know that I can't enter the study without Madam's permission, so I can only ask for your help." "What's inside?" Tang Tang asked. Ajong hastily opened it. It's a piece of porcelain. Inside laid a thin and small celadon dish. "Why do you need to put this inside Grandma's study?" Tang Tang asked. Ajong gritted his teeth. This little brat is so paranoid. Why is he asking so many whys? Ajong donned an anxious expression and pitifully said, "Sigh. Honestly, this is what happened. Madam ordered me to enter and clean up the study last time, but while I was cleaning, I accidentally shattered this piece of porcelain. I was afraid of Madam punishing me, so I didn't dare to tell Madam and went to buy an identical piece in a wish to replace it before Madam found out. Little young master, please do a kind deed and help me out." When Tang Tang didn't respond, Ajong gently said, "Little young master, you just need to wait until Madam isn't there and sneakily help me put inside. It's very simple." Tang Tang didn't agree or decline, a contemplative expression on his face. Seeing the situation look hopeful, Ajong started persuading him more earnestly. Little young master, although I've offended you many times previously, it was with your well-being in mind. You don't know, but Madam is especially strict normally, so I was afraid you'd do something wrong and anger her. I was afraid she'd punish you, which is why I reminded you carefully every time. Is that so? Tang Tang asked. A sharp glint flickered in Ah Zhong's eyes. He intended to use this opportunity and sow some discord. So he said, "That's right. Don't you know, little young master? Madam actually has a bad relationship with your dad and has done many, many terrible things to your dad and even kicked him out of the house. Madam also really hates your mom." Before Ah Zhong could finish speaking, the semi-interested Tong Tong's expression suddenly changed and his eyes shot toward him like an ice blade. "No one would hate my mommy." Ahem. Ah Zhong was at a loss for words momentarily. "But little young master, what I said is the absolute truth. If you don't believe me, you can go out and ask around. Everyone knows about this." Tong Tong's cherub face was brimming with a coldness that didn't match his age as he stressed every word he said. "Why should I ask around? I just need to listen to what Mommy tells me. Mommy told me Grandma is a nice person, so Grandma is a nice person." "You're speaking badly of Grandma. You're a bad person." Ah Zhong never expected this unpredictable development from the child and was dumbfounded. He was originally preparing to paint himself with a more favorable light and then vilify Yin Yuerong a bit more. How did he suddenly turn into a bad person? But wait, Yin Yuerong was a villain from the start, so why did he need to vilify her? Yet this little brat was this stupid and wouldn't believe anything he said. Ah Zhong had no choice but to relent. "Little young master, I was wrong. It's fine if you don't believe me. I was being a loudmouth and shouldn't have run my mouth off. I beg you to help me and put this item inside. Otherwise, my life will be in peril." Chapter 24:14. Bask in the sun together, Tang Tang harumphed. "I kinda don't want to help you." Ah Zhong's expression froze. "Little young master, I'm truly begging you. Just what do I need to do to make you help me? I will go buy more snacks and toys for you, all right?" Tang Tang mulled it over before replying. "If you want me to help you, I can. But I have a request." Ah Zhong turned joyous. "What request?" "I'll agree to it regardless of what it is." Tang Tang nonchalantly said, "All right, then say my grandma is a beautiful and kind-hearted celestial maiden 100 times. Ah Zhong was utterly dumbfounded. What the heck? Is this little brat serious? I isn't that too embarrassing. You won't say it? Then I'll leave. Don't disturb me from picking flowers for Grandma." Tang Tang turned to leave when Ah Zhong failed to speak for ages. Ah Zhong panicked. No, I'll say it. I'll say it right now. Madam is a celestial maiden." "You miss something?" "You can't miss a single word," Tang Tang said. Ah Zhong was miserable. Although he was talented in bootlicking, he'd never had to say such humiliating things before. Madam is a beautiful and kind-hearted celestial maiden. Madam is a beautiful and kind-hearted celestial maiden. Madam is Tang Tang started to leisurely walk ahead to continue picking flowers for Yin Yuerong, while Ah Zhong gritted his teeth and trailed behind like a lackey, forced to repeat the words Tang Tang demanded in an endless loop. "Forget it. I'll endure it. After today, it'll be my world. Little brat, just wait." When Ah Zhong finally finished, Tang Tang also chose an especially pretty plum flower to pluck. "Little young master, you'll agree to help me now, right?" Ah Zhong wiped his sweat. "Bring it over." Tang Tang was brisk this time. Ah Zhong excitedly handed the item over. "Little young master, you must remember, avoid others and secretly put it inside." "I know. So naggy. Do you think I'm a fool?" Ah Zhong chortled inwardly, thinking, "I managed to get you to do what I wanted with a few words, brat. You are a fool." However, Ah Zhong probably forgot that he didn't use just a few words. Tang Tang accepted the item and asked, "Do I put it inside the drawer?" Ah Zhong quickly answered, "The last drawer in the left cabinet." Yin Yuerong didn't use that spot often, so she wouldn't discover it for now. "Got it," Tang Tang said. Ah Zhong was naturally worried. So he followed Tang Dang the entire way there and watched Tang Dang enter the study and visually confirmed he took the box inside. A moment later, Tang Dang came out and the item was gone from his hands. After making sure Tang Dang took the item inside, Ajong followed In Heng's plan immediately and anonymously reported Inuero. When Ajong finished, he released a long sigh of relief. He finally completed his mission and just needed to watch the good show coming up. After today, he would partially become the In family's master and wouldn't need to act like a dog under Inuero and live every day in fear. He wouldn't have to take anything from a little brat anymore either. The weather was nice today, the winter sun casting its warm rays on the earth. After picking his plum flowers, Tang Tang dragged Inuero to the courtyard to bask in the sun. 2 lounge chairs, one big and one small, were placed in the courtyard and the duo comfortably lay on top of them. They didn't do anything and merely quietly basked in the sun with some chatter exchanged here and there. Chapter 24:15. Anonymous report before, Inuero wouldn't waste a single second or minute and constantly racked her brain to fight for power and profit. Doing nothing but lying in the courtyard to bask in the sun was a child's tale for her. At this moment, as she quietly lay on her lounge chair, peering at the sun above through the slits in her fingers, she oddly felt as if everything was a lifetime ago. Annie Chow stood in the distance and watched this scene, the rims of her eyes tearing up. She originally thought Madame wouldn't change for the rest of her life. Annie Chow didn't expect the heavens to finally take pity on Madame for once and send this child to Madame's side. Housekeeper Chow. A servant approached Annie Chow. The servant was about to continue when Auntie Chow interrupted. Quiet down. Madame and little young master are resting. The servant reported, some people from the Arbitration Council are here. They want to see Madame. The Arbitration Council? That's right. It's someone from the law department, and they've brought a large group here. Annie Chow had a faint feeling that something was wrong and didn't dare to delay matters, so she swiftly walked toward Inuero to inform her. Madam, someone from the Arbitration Council's law department is suddenly visiting. Their purpose is uncertain, Auntie Chow said hastily. Inuero switched back into her Director Een of the Arbitration Council mode almost instantly and straightened her clothes before standing up. I'll go and see them. Then she turned to Tang Tang and gently said, Grandma has visitors to receive. Play by yourself for a little. Okay, Grandma. Tang Tang docilely nodded and watched Inuero quickly heading toward the living room. The guards naturally didn't dare to block the people from the Arbitration Council and could only allow them inside and send someone to inform Inuero after confirming the identity of the visitors. Inside the living room, the chief of the Arbitration Council's law department was standing there with his arms behind his back while the staff he brought had locked down all entrances and exits to the villa, their ill intentions apparent. At the same time, Ajong stood on the side with his breath held as he concealed the excited and greedy glint in his eyes. He didn't expect them to come so fast. However, it wasn't a surprise since the Arbitration Council attached great importance to Qinzong's case. Inuero calmly greeted them. Pardon me for not going out to meet you, Chief Liu. Ajong, bring some tea. Yes, Chief Liu lifted his hand. Director Een, no need for the tea. I am here on official business today. Inuero narrowed her eyes. Official business? Chief Liu donned a polite smile. Director Een, you should know that I've been in charge of Qinzong's case, but there's a very important account book that we've been unable to find. Inuero remained composed. I don't know. What about it? When Chief Liu saw that her expression remained unchanged still, his eyes chilled. Just now, someone anonymously reported that this account book is inside your study. May I ask if there's anything you would like to say, Director Een? Inuero's gaze flickered before she turned to Chief Liu. Is Chief Liu joking? Whether I'm joking or not, we'll find out after a search. What do you say, Director Een? After all, there's no smoke without fire. To prove your innocence, Director Een, I had to make a personal visit. You'll definitely cooperate with me, right, Director Een? Chief Lu spoke beautifully. He didn't offend anyone, but also didn't allow anyone to refute him. Inuerong knew that since Chief Lu paid a personal visit and brought so many people with him, they wouldn't relent until they conducted a thorough search. The abruptness of this incident didn't give her any room to react. The only thing she could do was allow the other party to search as they desired. Chapter 24:16. Take good care of Tang Tang, Inuerong aloofly replied. Of course, as you wish. Inuerong quickly regained her composure. She normally had an unyielding attitude and enforced laws especially strictly, so she made many enemies. People had reported her out of sheer displeasure before. However, she'd always been cautious and careful and didn't allow anyone to gain leverage on her. Hence, the majority of those people only reported her to repulse her. Whether it was her ancestraline residence or Wanmei Villa, they were both tight as an iron tub, and no problem should arise. Upon hearing affirmation from her, Chief Lu waved his hand and ordered his men to search swiftly. Inuerong called Auntie Chow over. Auntie Chow. Auntie Chow, who was standing on pins and needles, rushed over. Yes, madam. What are your orders? Have people take good care of Tang Dang. Don't let him come to the front. Auntie Chow knew that Inuerong was afraid this display would scare Tang Dang and quickly answered, Yes, madam. She had always been by madam's side and knew madam the best. She was well aware madam had nothing to do with Qin Zong's dirty business. So how could she secretly be hiding something as important as Qin Zong's account book? However, Chief Lu came so menacingly and said it with such certainty that Auntie Lu couldn't help but worry. Within 5 minutes, a young man in uniform hastily returned with an item in his hold. Chief, I found it. When Inuerong saw that young man walk out of her study with an unfamiliar red, carved wooden box, coldness flickered through her eyes. She'd never seen this box before. How did it appear in her study? Chief Lu quickly walked over and opened the box, discovering a celadone porcelain dish laying inside. Chief Lu ordered, Break the box apart. The young man obeyed and pulled out a dagger, carefully prying the exquisite wooden box apart. A moment later, the thicker board at the bottom was pried open with a catjack. The box actually had a hidden layer, and inside the hidden layer was an item wrapped in a brown paper bag. The subordinate exclaimed and handed the item over. Chief. Chief Lu slowly opened the item. It was evidently Qin Zong's ledger. Director Yin, what do you have to say now? Chief Lu's expression was chilly. Inuerong stared at the ledger, a storm brewing on her face. I say what? In this type of situation, there truly wasn't much she could say anymore. She was overly confident and never expected someone to place this item inside her study without any notice. This was the scene that met Auntie Chow when she returned. She turned pale with fright. Chief Lu, that's impossible. There must be some misunderstanding. Our madam has always acted honestly, so how could she possibly do something like this? Someone must have intentionally planted this ledger there. Chief Lu shot her a cold look. Plant? This is Wanmei Villa. May I ask who's capable enough to openly place something like this inside Director Yin's study? Auntie Chow replied in a panic. Madam's study is tightly secured, and no one can enter without permission indeed, but before Auntie Chow could finish, Chief Lu interrupted her. Since that's the case, there's no mistaking it. Auntie Chow reflexively glanced at Inuerong. What she didn't finish saying was, but little young master could freely enter as he wished. Chapter 24:17. Never thought about struggling little young master was the only person who had entered Inuerong's study recently. Could it be? Impossible. How could that be possible? Forget about it being impossible. Even if they said it, no one would believe a child would do something like that. With such concrete evidence, Inuerong wouldn't be able to explain herself regardless of what she said. Auntie Chow met Inuerong's eyes, and Inuerong understood what the other woman was thinking. She knew her study best, and Tang Dang was the only one who could enter. Tang Dang was also the only one who could secretly put things inside her study without anyone noticing. Moreover, Tang Tang was the only one she didn't guard herself against at all. An extremely terrifying thought gradually rose in Yin Yuerong's mind. This thought slowly swallowing her whole like a quicksand. It was Tang Tang? Why? The darkness that Yin Yuerong had been forcefully suppressing in the bottom of her heart instantly rushed up like a flood. No wonder. She treated his dad and mom like this, and she was so unlikable. So why would he like her? Why would he show such concern and intimacy toward her after learning about her identity? Why would he treat her like his grandma, his family? How cold? How could there be someone who liked her? The child became close to her merely for this moment, merely to take revenge on her, right? In the end, her wishes were too far-fetched. When Auntie Qiao saw the expressions flashing across Yin Yuerong's face, her heart panged with sympathy. She wanted to comfort Madame, but didn't know what to say. She could only pray that the situation wasn't as she thought. Otherwise, the effect on Madame would be too great. She liked, indulged, and trusted that child so much. Apologies, Director Yin. Please come with us. Chief Lu said, in his hiding spot. The excitement and joy in Zhong's eyes couldn't be concealed anymore. Finally, Yin Yuerong was finally finished. Young Master Yin Heng's method was simply too brilliant. Not only did they take care of Yin Yuerong, but he also stayed completely clean. Regardless of what that little bastard would reveal later, no one would believe a child's words. Speaking of which, it was thanks to that little bastard this time for acting so efficiently and placing the item exactly where he instructed so that things progressed so smoothly. Auntie Qiao wanted to say something, but Yin Yuerong's gaze prohibited her from saying anything else before turning to Chief Lu. Let's go. Although this was a higher up from the arbitration council, they still had to follow the due process. Chief Lu ordered people to bring forth the chains and handcuffs specially crafted for people with high martial strength. Pardon this offense. Yin Yuerong expressionlessly stared at those handcuffs and remained silent. Her eyes dimmed little by little as though an enormous vortex was swallowing all of the light. In the end, she merely gave one instruction to her housekeeper. Auntie Qiao, after I leave, send Tang Tang to Ajio's place. She should have known that she shouldn't have ever forcefully demanded things that didn't belong to her. How funny. She made a mistake. She actually made a mistake again. When Auntie Qiao heard Yin Yuerong's instructions, tears spilled out. Madam, you'll be fine. You'll definitely be fine. However, in this kind of situation, the evidence was discovered at the scene, so even Madam was helpless. Or rather, Madam didn't seem to have even thought about struggling. Auntie Qiao could tell that Madam was truly greatly impacted this time. Chapter 24:18. No one is allowed to take my grandma away. The past few days, Yin Yuerong had lived like she was dreaming. She might have been relaxed and happy, but she was also plagued with fear, afraid that days like these were just an illusion and would disappear in the blink of an eye. Now that it finally came true, she felt oddly relieved. As expected, she had to pay the price for something so wonderful. Let's move. Since this was Tong Tong's wish, then so be it. When Chief Lu saw Yin Yuerong didn't resist, he released a sigh of relief. His subordinates each took a side as they approached and shackled her. Chief Lu ordered, "Take her away." Before Yin Yuerong walked through the front entrance, a childish voice suddenly shouted, "Hold on." The little fella's voice was a bit young, but his aura was abnormally fierce. He darted in front of Yin Yuerong, using his tiny body to protect her behind him. No one is allowed to take my grandma away. Yin Yuerong reflexively used her sleeves to cover the handcuffs around her wrists, her expression dazed as she looked at the child who suddenly appeared. Tang Tang. Chief Lu saw the child that popped out of nowhere and automatically started examining the child. A glance, and he was surprised. This child really resembles Director C. So this was the child detained by Yin Yuerong that everyone was babbling about? Didn't they say Yin Yuerong loathed this child's mother, so she detained this child to torment him every day? Because of this, the higher-ups of the arbitration council had complaints about her, and thought her actions affected the arbitration council's reputation. So they were planning to condemn her together. So why did it look like things weren't, as the rumors claimed? If Inuerong tormented this child every day, why would he step forward to protect her at a time like this? Inuerong never expected Tang Tang to appear and froze in her spot. Tang Tang was a tiny ball, but he staunchly stood in front of Inuerong and said, "It was me who placed this red wooden box inside Grandma's study this morning. It has nothing to do with Grandma." When Annie Chow heard this, surprise covered her face. When Inuerong heard Tang Tang personally admitting that he was the one who put the box there, her face turned as pale as snow, and the last trace of warmth in her heart completely dispersed in the chilly wind. It really was Tang Tang who placed it there. But since it was him who did it, why did he come forward to admit it now? At this moment, half of Inuerong's heart was sunken into a cold river while the other was burning in a blazing flame. Ajong was watching as Inuerong was about to be taken away, but then this little brat suddenly popped up and caused trouble. He hastily approached and said, "Little young master, you mustn't speak rashly. You're just a child, so how could you do such a thing? I understand you don't want them to take Madam away, but Sai, even if you say all this, it's useless because no one will believe you." Clearly, Chief Lu looked at Tang Tang like he was a child throwing a tantrum. Tang Tang glanced at Ajong. "I'm a child, so of course I wouldn't put this item inside Grandma's study for no reason. I did it because you told me to put it there." Upon hearing that, Inuerong's gaze shot toward Ajong like a knife. Ajong told Tang Tang to put it in there. A moment ago, her mind was rattled, so she completely lost the ability to think and didn't consider Ajong at all. She merely recalled that Tang Tang was the only one who could enter her study. Perhaps because concern threw one's mind into chaos, Inuerong's first assumption was that Tang Tang did this because he hated her and never considered that Tang Tang might have been tricked. Chapter 24:19. Did you think I was a feeble-minded child? Ajong expected Tang Tang to say that and made preparations beforehand, so he wasn't afraid. He feigned a stunned expression as he asked, "Little young master, you can't wildly say things like that. I've been with Madam for so many years, and I'm undyingly loyal. Why would I tell you to do such a thing? Although I also really hope it was me who did this, so Madam will be okay." Unfortunately, Chief Lu won't believe you even if you say that. As Ajong tried to clear his name, he didn't forget to express his loyalty and pretend to be a good person. Little brat, you want to drag me in? You're too naive. Words alone weren't proof. Plus, Tang Tang was a child, so what he said was completely useless. Inuerong was also aware of that fact. However, it was enough. This child might loathe her, but had a kind-hearted nature and couldn't bear it when he saw her being taken away. To her, it was already enough that Tang Tang could step forward and say what he said at a time like this. When Tang Tang heard Ajong, he looked at Ajong like he was looking at an idiot. "Ajong, don't tell me that you thought I was a feeble-minded child this whole time. Are you saying you aren't a child? Are you saying you're stupid?" Although Ajong thought that, he maintained his courteous front. "Of course not, little young master. You're naturally exceptionally intelligent. Little young master." Oh, Tang Tang nodded. "Since I'm not an idiot, then it appears you're the idiot. Why do you think I wouldn't be cautious when you acted completely out of character and used toys and snacks to tempt me to do a strange task?" The child's words made Ajong's heart indescribably skip a beat. This child's expression was truly too calm and didn't resemble a child who didn't know anything. However, Ajong still didn't think such a young child could know anything. Moreover, it was useless even if he did. Ajong feigned ignorance. "Little young master, what are you saying? I don't understand." Tang Tang docilely smiled. "It appears you aren't only idiotic, but idiotic beyond cure." Tang Tang then dug out an object from his pocket and turned to Chief Lu. "I know words alone aren't proof, so this is my proof." Inuerong immediately saw what Tang Tang was holding. That was the fountain pen I gave Tang Tang a few days ago. This child actually carried it on him constantly. "What is this?" Chief Lu frowned. Tang Tang pressed the power button on the pen, and Zhong's voice immediately drifted out from the pen. This pen was equipped with a recording function. Zhong, little BR, little young master. Tang Tang, oh, it's you, Zhong. Do you need something? Little young master, this is candy and toys I bought for you. See if you like them. Little young master, do you want them? I can give all of these to you as long as you do me a tiny favor. Tang Tang expressionlessly asked. Do you want to keep listening? When Zhong heard his own voice ringing out from the pen, he was dumbstruck. From his interactions with Tang Tang the past few days, Zhong perceived Tang Tang as a cute and innocent bat who only knew how to act like a spoiled child and play cute. He never expected the child to be cunning enough to specifically record a random conversation he had with him. Madam, Chief Lu, I was just randomly chatting with little young master. Zhong finally panicked. Chief Lu shot him a cold glance. Quiet. Keep listening. Soon, Tang Tang resumed the recording. Chapter 2420. Unforgettable evidence-gathering experience. What favor? Little young master, can you help me place this item in a drawer inside Madam's study? Why don't you place it yourself? Because Tang Tang clearly asked at that time, he meticulously recorded the whole process of how Zhong cajoled him. The red, carved wooden box and celadone porcelain dish that Zhong mentioned were identical to the ones they found in the study. Chief Lu's expression was austere as he seriously listened to this important piece of evidence. The more he heard, the more he thought. This servant named Zhong was probably a bit dumb. The child had an underlying meaning in nearly every sentence he spoke, tricking information out of Zhong. Yet Zhong didn't detect a single thing. Little young master, I was afraid you'd do something wrong and anger her. I was afraid she'd punish you, which is why I carefully reminded you every time. Don't you know, little young master, Madam actually has a bad relationship with your dad and has done many terrible things to your dad and even kicked him out of the house. Madam also really hates your mom. When Yuerong listened to how Zhong got Tang Tang to frame her, her expression remained calm. However, when she heard Zhong actually sowing discord in the relationship between her and Tang Tang, her expression changed at once. With a bang, Yuerong kicked Zhong on the knee. Dog servant, a man who is never content, is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. When she saved him from the burial mounds, he was overflowing with gratitude toward her and devotedly loyal to her. However, a person's desires and greed were limitless. The better she treated him and the more she trusted him, the more it fostered his greed instead. Also, there was Hong. It wasn't difficult for Yuerong to figure out who was behind Zhong. This thought sent her plunging into an ice cavern. Zhong screamed from the kick and fell to his knees with a plop, rolling on the ground in agony. Yuerong's spine was stiff as she stared intently at Tang Tang. When even a close servant of hers viewed her like this, what would Tang Tang think? No wonder Tang Tang helped Zhong. At this moment, Tang Tang's chilly voice was finally heard from the recording pen. No one would hate my mommy, but little young master, what I said is the absolute truth. If you don't believe me, you can go out and ask around. Everyone knows about this matter. Why should I go out and ask around? I just need to listen to what Mommy tells me. Mommy told me Grandma is a nice person. So Grandma is a nice person. You're talking badly of Grandma. You're a bad person. Yuerong never expected Tang Tang to respond that way, shock brimming from her eyes. This child actually never hated me? When Annie Chiao heard this, she felt comforted. She knew little young master wouldn't treat Madam like that. As expected, a mother's guidance toward their child was most important. If Miss Nya didn't keep saying that to Tang Tang, Tang Tang wouldn't maintain such naivety or his kind heart. As for Chief Lu and his underlings, they all couldn't help but inwardly mutter. Director C's fiancée actually praised Yuerong as a good person. What a magical woman. Then Zhong coaxed and pretended to be pitiful in all sorts of ways in the recording until Tang Tang seemed to finally soften and told Zhong he would help if Zhong agreed to a request from him. When Chief Lu and his group heard the request Tang Tang brought up, their expression was complicated. What was more frightening was, just like that, they were forced to listen to "Madam is a beautiful and kind-hearted celestial maiden." Because they were worried they would miss some important evidence in the recording, everyone present forcefully listened to that 100 times. Toward the end, Chief Lu's expression couldn't be any darker. This was probably the most unforgettable piece of evidence he had gathered in his life. Chapter 24-21. Tang Tang will protect Grandma if Yuerong's heart felt sucked dry of water earlier, as dry as a desert. Then Tang Tang saying, "My grandma is a beautiful and kind-hearted celestial maiden," was like a timely rainfall after a long drought. A second ago, she felt like she was in hell, but now, she felt like she'd returned to the mortal world. This was the first time in her life that she felt redeemed, merely because Tang Tang didn't hate her. This thought alone was enough to soothe all the darkness in her heart. Yuerong gladly listened to it 100 times, but the others had different thoughts. Chief Lu nearly wanted to vomit blood. This sentence was akin to a devil's chant that continued to echo in his head still. Finally, they endured it all the way until Zhong finished saying it. The exchange went a little longer, including all of Zhong's instructions for Tang Tang, and completely solidified his crime of getting Tang Tang to put the ledger in Yuerong's study. Chief Lu immediately ordered for Zhong to be captured. The person who felt most tortured and the most despair was none other Zhong. As he listened to the entire recording, he was a dumbstruck fool the entire time. Chief Lu turned to the child and unconsciously treated him like an adult, asking him as an equal. "Can I ask you a question?" "Please," Tang Tang replied. "How did you know something was off, and why did you start recording from the very beginning?" Tang Tang blinked. A person who had always been mean to me suddenly secretly sought me out holding candy and toys and smiling like a chrysanthemum. Even a dummy would know something was off, right? Amen. That's irrefutable. Zhong, how is that possible? This little brat realized something was wrong from the very beginning? Chief Lu asked with intrigue. Since you knew something was wrong, why didn't you reject him directly? Tang Tang calmly explained, "I knew he was up to no good, but I didn't know what he was doing, so I just made the best of it and slowly probed for his objective and also retained evidence as a precaution. Thankfully, I always carried the pen Grandma gave me. If I rejected him from the start, he'd definitely think of another method to harm Grandma. That way, wouldn't my grandma constantly be in danger? I naturally wanted to expose his true nature somehow, but I also needed to ensure my grandma's safety." The little fella said everything matter-of-factly, all but asking, "Isn't that obvious?" Chief Lu cleared his throat. That's right. You're correct. Like father, like son. This child truly was Director C's son and Yuerong's grandson. Just how stupid was this servant to underestimate and look down on this child? Chief Lu suddenly realized Yuerong was still handcuffed and quickly ordered, "Ahem, hurry and release Director already." His people hastened over and unlocked Yuerong's shackles. Meanwhile, all that rang in Yuerong's ears was the little fella's resolute voice saying, "I needed to ensure my grandma's safety." Yuerong leaned down. "Tang Tang, Grandma." The little fella dashed over immediately and launched himself into his grandma's arms. He used his little hand to pat Yuerong's hair as he comforted her. "Grandma, don't be scared. Tong Tong's here. Tang Tang will protect Grandma." Yuerong tightly hugged the little fella and closed her eyes, a teardrop falling down on his body. Thank you. Thank you for not hating Grandma. Thank you for staying here." This was Chief Lu's first time seeing such a warm side to Yuerong and chuckled. "Director you have a good grandson. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.